All right, well, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order and do a roll call.
Allers.
Here.
Appleton.
Here.
Joe. Here. Lester.
Here.
Michael.
Here.
Mealy.
Here.
Schwartz.
Here.
Spencer.
Present.
Spicer.
Present.
Young. We have a quorum.
All right, takes us to item 3, adoption of the agenda. Councilman Spencer.
Mayor, could I like to make a motion to amend the agenda, add an item C under miscellaneous agenda items to recognize Helias and Capital City Girls Tennis.
Second.
There's recognition.
All right. And that change, everybody comfortable with the agenda as amended? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Councilman. Which takes us to item 4, miscellaneous agenda items, recognizing Fire Division Chief Jerry Blomberg.
He is, Mayor. So if he would make his way to the podium, I have a short
There it is.
to read here.
Chief, you're welcome to come up there. You can do it.
I'll read from here, then I'll join you maybe.
Perfect.
Dear members of City Council and the community at large, I'm honored to present this recognition of Division Chief Jerry Blomberg. With almost 28 years of dedicated service to the Jefferson City Fire Department, he has left an indelible mark on our community. Jerry's unwavering commitment and innovation and all the contributions have made a profound impact on our department and the safety of our citizens. Rising through the ranks, he was hired on March 17, 1997 as a firefighter, was promoted to fire driver, then fire captain, then as a shift training officer. And for the past 9 years, Jerry has served as our division chief of training in a role that has been instrumental in shaping the knowledge and readiness of all of our personnel. Notably, Jerry's initiatives in technical computer sciences, specifically spreadsheets, have become citywide and maybe even statewide. He is known as one of the spreadsheet gurus' expertise and is many times loaned out to other city departments. So beyond that expertise and training, Jerry has made significant impact and contributions to health and safety initiatives, policy development, and enhancing our special operations capability. His strategic thinking and operational mindset and a collaborative approach have strengthened our department and fostered a positive culture of continuous improvement. So it is with great pride that I recognize Division Chief Jerry Blomberg for his outstanding service and contributions to the City Fire Department. He exemplifies the very best of public service. So thank you for joining us at the Jeff City Fire Department, celebrating Jerry's remarkable contribution and wishing him all the best in his future endeavors. And I'll also mention, Mayor, that we do have a gathering planned for January 3rd at 6 p.m. in the annex that everyone is invited to as well.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
We'll give you the microphone.
I just want to thank the council for taking the time to honor me. Thank Chief Schofield for making my current position sound so exciting. And thank everybody who's here to support me. So thank you very much.
If you want to introduce those you have with you.
With me, I have my wife, Courtney, my youngest daughter, Danica, youngest son, Simon, and in the back, who's going to stay hidden back there, my middle son, Gavin. So two absent for other commitments. So thank you.
Early times.
Thank you, sir.
We thought, Chief, we'd do a picture real quick. If you guys, and you can have anybody come up front. Right now, going to come down real quick. Council will do their official blading, and we'll get a picture. Yeah. Yeah.
They're avoiding pajama day at school.
Yeah.
You take it from the chest. Just sideways on the desk. I will lay on the desk one of these times.
Mr. Mayor, if I could have 2 pictures. There's some fire department staff back there.
Absolutely. I invited them up. They were kind of giving me the evil eyes.
Well, because they're here, they have to get the picture.
All right. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. We'll call them up.
Being called out, ducking.
Yeah. Look at them.
You gonna let the kids stay back too?
Well, it's pajama day, and they're trying to avoid pictures. Freshman practice.
We're going to have to get Chief Willie involved.
Put some muscle behind it.
One, two, three. Awesome.
All right, we'll go to item 4B. We got some great news. I'm going to turn it over to our city administrator, Mr. Brian Twain.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my privilege to introduce our new Human Resources Director. Paul Buckley's in the audience tonight. So, Paul, if you want to stand up, and just really excited about the opportunity to serve with Paul. He's brings a lot of experience, most recently for the state of Missouri, but we really think he's going to be a wealth of knowledge and really have a employee-focused determination with all the things we do in our organization and in our community. So we're really excited to have Paul. Paul, do you want to say anything?
Just happy to be here.
Why don't you come up to Mike?
Okay. Through the protocol.
Just to get familiar with him.
Oh, look at this right here. This is great. Okay. Oh, look at that. Oh, this is great. No, I'm really excited to be here. Looking forward to getting started and jumping right in. I know there's a lot of work to be done, and I've spent most of the last 25 years at the state level, so I'm really excited to get more involved in local government, and I think have a big impact on a community that's been very important to me and my daughter, who grew up here for the last 25 years. So excited to be here.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Mayor, I'm really excited.
Would you like to speak? Are you punting something?
Just pointing it out.
All right. Minutes will reflect that.
Perfect.
All right, we'll go to item C, which was just amended on. We're going to recognize a couple tennis teams. I think first is Capital City High School. Is Coach Brown here?
Yes, sir.
You want to come up, and I know you've got some very important people with you, so I'm going to let you introduce the stars, and I've got a cheat sheet here too, so.
Would you like
help?
This is my first city council meeting, so.
We're just going to recognize, I think we've got Megan, Addie, and Courtney, or?
Courtney, yep. So, if it's all right, can I say a few things quickly?
Absolutely, that's.
All right. Well, right off the bat, I'd just like to say, once again, this is directly to my right, Courtney Linhart. Directly to her right is Megan Wilde, and directly to her right is Addison Spencer. And these three young ladies made up 3 of our top 6 varsity players, making it not only to state, but placing runner-ups in their district, individual, and dual competitions. Along with their success at the district and state level, there were multiple tournaments this year where Addie and Courtney together placed first and runner-up, or first and third place at respective tournaments in Waynesville and Springfield, and Megan Wilde playing singles, placing first in Waynesville and second in Springfield, which we are very proud of. We're only looking toward the future, but it would be a mistake not to acknowledge the success of and leadership that these 3 young ladies bring to our program and our school and our community. So could we get a round of applause for these?
And 14-3.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So 14-3, with 2 of those losses being to Helias. So we're only proud of you guys. You're always fun to play. So keep up the great work, ladies.
You ladies like to say anything? That sounds cool. Finals this week?
It is, yes, sir.
So we appreciate you coming out. If you don't want to say anything, I think we have a proud parent that wants to make any comments, and then we'll come up and do a quick picture, and You can invite family members, whoever you want.
I was gonna put her on the spot, but I told her I wouldn't, so,
So you just did.
and I just did.
All right, well, you might as well stand up real quick. We'll get a picture of it.
And if you want to have family come up, that is great. And I'll bring the certificate.
Parents. Yeah, that would be great. You know what? Why don't you, do you have your phone on you, ladies? I'm gonna grab, they don't like it when they're come from my phone, so I'm gonna get it from an iPhone.
One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank you.
Sneak in there real quick. Give this certificate.
All right.
1, 2, 3.
Let's have the girls hold this one real quick. Scrap around the mayor real quick. Gracious. There you go. Everybody get a hand on that.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Good job, ladies. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Coach. And Coach, you coming? Coach here? You want to come up and bring you have some players with you? Or anybody else you'd like to?
I'll come. How about that?
The whole team? Cap City built you up pretty good, so you want to tell us a little about that?
Well, thank you for having us. I'm Coach Mawson. We had a wonderful season. We were 12-2. We lost to Rockbridge and we lost to Ladue in the quarterfinals of state. So, and then we had Katie Meistrick and her sister Josie, who also went to state as a doubles team. So we're really proud of them. We had a really fun season.
You want to introduce?
Oh, we were district champs. We won our district, so that was great. So over on the left is Emily Rowling, Josie Franska, Katie Meistrick, Elena Hines, Josie Meistrick, Allison Rowling, and Coach Jacobic.
I understand you had 2 sets of siblings?
Yes, Emily and Allison are twins, and Josie and Katie are sisters.
You play doubles together, is that?
Yes, both did.
What did I see? You had a pretty good record too.
Yes, we were 12-2. So we had a great season, yeah.
Anybody want to take the microphone? We got to have somebody.
Anybody want to talk? No.
Finals this week at Elias also?
Yes.
All right, we'll do a quick picture and then. Oh, yeah, Councilman Spencer.
I'd just like to say, first off, Mayor, thank you for your willingness to recognize our student athletes. I know you're always open to that, and I really appreciate it. But I get to watch these ladies, both from Capital City and Elias, and it's just amazing how committed they are to their sport, to their academics, and but what makes me more proud is how they are always willing, cheering each other on. Capital City is very supportive of Elias, and Elias is very supportive of Capital City, and vice versa, with Jefferson City High School as well. And there's just a lot of great character on this team, and I know the coaches have probably some part to do with that and as well, but they're just quality people, and I just look for them to make their mark on society, because you all are really professional young ladies out on the court. So thank you for being a good example to a lot of younger girls as well coming up through the ranks. So thank you.
So what grade are you in? Anybody come back next year?
All but 2.
Oh, wow.
Katie and Elena are seniors, so.
What next? You gonna play in college?
She's good. She will.
All right, well, we'll do a quick picture, and you're more than welcome to invite family or anybody you want to come up.
Thank you. Okay.
Molly's pretty talented at getting a lot of people on the pictures. Well, you guys already have something planned. Here you go.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Councilman Schwartz not here, but I think he had a pretty good football team that flies too. We may need to get them in here.
He's online, I think.
There he is. All right, well, thanks. We always enjoy recognizing our youth, so thanks for the indulgence. I think that takes us through items in 4, takes us down to 5, opportunity for public comments. Do we have none on public comments? Then we'll move to item 6, public hearings. First is pending bill 2024-057.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, changing, amending, modifying the zoning map of the zoning code of the City of Jefferson by rezoning 2.3 acres of land located at 120 Constitution Drive from RA2 high-density residential to PUD plan unit development and approving a preliminary PUD plan.
Mr. Smith, you're going to present the plan to get us started?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So we'll have a kind of a PowerPoint here in a second, and I'll kind of walk through a little bit of the layout and some of the other graphics along with that case. But just to recap, so this would be a rezoning from a currently zoned property of high-density residential to a PUD development plan district to allow the development of the property maybe in a little bit less of a common arrangement. It would have a contractor's shop to the front of the lot. PUD then allows for the additional development of the lot to the west to have 8 residential dwelling units on it. And if we can have the PowerPoint up, I can kind of show you that layout here in a second. But while we're waiting for that to be pulled up, I'll give you a little background on the property. It is located, again, on the west side of Constitution Drive, between 10 Mile Drive and West Truman Boulevard. We'll have that up in 1 second. The development plan did include some elevations for the contractor shop. It did indicate some masonry along with some metal cladding for that building. The 8 units would be arranged in 4 separate buildings, so 2 unit buildings for each one, kind of a townhome style arrangement, with 1-car garage for each. There we go. You can see the zoning to the north. That is that multifamily district. Again, we'll have generally assisted living facilities to the north. To the south is Cole County Health Department. Commercial zoning to the west, so it kind of makes it as a kind of a natural transition point going from residential into commercial. So again, having kind of those 2 different uses on the property governed by that PUD plan. You see the layout here. As I had stated, kind of a contractor shop to the front of that lot, access drive up to the rear of it for the 8 dwelling units located on the far west of that property. It is one lot, would be owned by the current owner, who would own and operate the contractor shop as well as the dwelling units. It's got a rendering of the front of the contractor shop as viewed from Constitution Drive. With that being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I do believe a representative is here if there's any questions for him as well.
I don't see any questions from council. Anybody want to speak in favor? So welcome. You just introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Brian. I'm Brian McMillan with Bartlett and West, 601 Monroe Street. Mr. Berenson wants to purchase this lot and put this contractor shop and multifamily housing. And as I said at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, this is one of the worst lots in Jeff City. I think it's got a pond on it, it's been being used as a detention basin. It's been rubble dumped on it. It's very steep, lots of grade changes. So it's going to have a lot to deal with. But I commend him for trying to deal with it and make use of this lot, which will. And the multifamily housing is definitely needed in Jeff City. So I think that's a good perk to what he's wanting to do here. So Mr. Berenson is here this evening if you have any questions for him. I did give you all a handout because if you just to kind of help you see better, and I think the apartment plans were left out of the plan and zoning packet, but they're there if you want to see what things are for them to look like. So other than that, if you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
Yes, thank you. First, I would like to say thank you because multi-level housing is definitely needed here in Jefferson City. This seemed to be in my ward. So my question for you is when do you expect to start with this and what do you expect as a ending date to have this ready?
Well, I believe, as soon as it's approved tonight, hopefully, we'll go ahead and start designing and get final plans done. And so it could be, 3 to 4 months before they actually break ground and start construction. But here,
I'm Kyle Berenson, trying to do this project. The plan is now by this time next year to have the contractor shop up and all that done. In that phase, we have to do the bioretention basin, which is underneath the road. All the earthwork will be done. Obviously the drainage, the stormwater. He probably showed on there a little bit. There's a couple stormwater drains that come off them buildings above it. When that was all done, it was one big lot and then separated up. And like Brian mentioned, there's a big pond on it right now that is basically the retention basin. So we have to take all that water, put it in an underground retention basin, then finally back into city stormwater. So there's quite a bit of funds going into that part to get to there. So that will all be done, phase one. My hope is to, by this time next year, have the shop completely done and starting on the townhomes immediately after that.
Do you anticipate having a waiting list or a sign-up list for these housing?
We probably will do a sign-up list once we start project or start that phase of it. But yes. Yep.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem at all.
Councilman Spencer.
Yeah, I echo my colleagues from Third Ward's comments. I think it was even commented in the paper from our previous public works director that this is one of the worst lots in Jefferson City. And so for your desire to make an improvement in that location and also housing and your shop is a welcome addition. So thank you very much for your willingness to.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yes.
Seeing no other questions, thanks. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone else to speak in favor? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Council now has 2024-057 in front of you. Any other questions?
Unless there's any questions, I'd like to go ahead and make the motion that we proceed.
You have that on the table already, so we don't really need a motion, but thank you.
Strike it out
All right, we'll do a roll call vote.
Allers. Hazelton. Joe.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Neely. Schwartz.
Aye.
I heard him.
Spencer.
Aye.
Spicer.
Aye.
Young.
Aye.
Bill passes.
All right, I'm going to go to item 6B. There are two pieces of that. First is Bill 2024-062.
An ordinance approving the Christy Drive tax increment financing plan, designating the redevelopment area, declaring the proposed redevelopment area a blighted area, and designating Land Investments LLC as the developer of the redevelopment project.
We'll go ahead and open the public hearing on Christy Drive tax increment financing plan. The item is on the agenda for public hearing regarding this proposed project. So our order of business will be first presentation by city staff and consultants. Mo?
Yeah, so like I said at the pre-meeting, a lot of the heavy lifting tonight is going to be handled by our consultants from Lauber Municipal Law and also from Baker Tilly. First, I can introduce Joe Lauber from Lauber Municipal Law, who served as outside Special Economic Development Counsel on this project, and will walk us through kind of the steps that we have to hit to make sure that all the requirements of the TIF Act are being fulfilled. But with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Lauber.
Welcome.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Thank you for having me here. I'm very happy to be here. It's been a long path to this point this evening, so I'm excited to bring this information to you. As Mr. Molman indicated, I'm Joe Lauber with the law firm of Lauber Municipal Law. I represent the city of Jefferson as its special counsel for economic development matters. As you know, we're here this evening to discuss the Christy Drive TIF plan and CID petition. We met last month with the TIF Commission, and they saw the TIF portion of this project, but I'm here now to present you with the entire incentives request as the CID portion isn't a part of that TIF consideration other than kind of a notice as we go through. Let's see here. Do we have the slideshow? Oh, sorry, thank you. It would be the other one. Yeah, no, it's not there. I'm going to go ahead, while they're pulling that up, I can keep proceeding here to keep things as quick as possible this evening, because there's a lot to cover. Before we begin this evening, though, I do want to give you a brief summary of what you will see. So you will have 4 ordinances, as the mayor mentioned, in front of you related to this incentives request, which if they are passed, would approve the TIF plan, approve the overall contract between the applicant and the city to carry out that TIF plan, to approve a CID petition to create a CID, and also then to approve a cooperative agreement, which would set kind of the rules, if you will, rules of engagement between that CID and the city and the applicant, who would then be developer as we go forward with that. So we'll take each of those in turn as we go through this evening. First of all, we are in the public hearing at this point for the TIF plan. So during this hearing, you'll hear from the city's representatives. I will present a nuts and bolts summary of the proposed TIF plan for you, and I'll provide you with my opinion and the TIF Commission's recommendation as to whether this plan meets the statutory requirements. Next, you'll hear a presentation from the city's independent financial consultant advisor. They will go over the financial information in the incentives request, and they will discuss specifically whether the TIF plan satisfies the but-for requirement that is required under Missouri statutes to approve a TIF. Next, you'll hear, or after that, after you hear from the city's representatives, the applicant will speak about the TIF plan, and that will be followed then by public comments on the TIF plan itself. We will then discuss that TIF contract. I will present the contract to you, but there is no public hearing on that portion. We will then open a public hearing on the CID petition. Again, you'll hear from me. I'll present a summary of that CID petition and provide you with my opinion as to whether the petition meets the statutory requirements. Then you'll also, again, hear from the city's independent financial advisor on the CID petition. They may not have additional comments on that. And finally, then the applicant will speak prior to public comments before that. We always like to give that information first. Many times, questions that might come from public comments are often answered in these presentations. And then so finally, the last piece on the incentives request that will be before you this evening is the cooperative agreement. Like the TIF contract, there is no public hearing requirement, and I will present the nuts and bolts of those terms to you. So between the submitted plan, the CID petition, the staff reports, on each of the items in your agenda packets, you already have really a mountain of information before you with respect to this application as it comes forward. There we go. That was like perfect timing too, so I'm gonna dive right into flipping the slides here. So I'm going to take a few moments initially just to focus your attention on the legal sufficiency of the proposed plan. We will answer the threshold question of whether the plan satisfies the requirements of the TIF Act, which it must before you as a council can approve it. So again, we've provided you with a ton of information in the packets, but I will go through for the benefit of those who are present from the public this evening to address that legal sufficiency. And we'll also briefly just note the 6 findings regarding tax increment financing plan that a city council must make before it can adopt a plan. As I mentioned earlier, the TIF Commission voted to make those 6 findings. They voted 9-1 back on November 20th was when they held their public hearing. And they do recommend that this council make the findings and approve this TIF plan. Okay. So one of the first things we need to do is get into the frame of mind that this is a plan. It is about estimates and projections at this point. Nobody has the crystal ball. If we did, we wouldn't be here. We'd be sitting on a beach counting our earnings from picking the ponies or whatever we've used that crystal ball for. When an applicant approaches the city to request incentives, the city's team of consultants works to determine whether the applicant's numbers are justifiable and whether further to determine whether they truly need incentives, and if so, how much. With that having been said, I'll dive into that summary of the plan. So you see here on the first slide before you, our development is Christy Drive Tax Increment Financing Plan that has been proposed. Your applicant this evening is Land Investments, LLC. They're an affiliate of farmer companies. The redevelopment area is approximately 42 acres in size. The applicant has indicated that they will be donating 21 acres of that to the United Capital City Soccer Club as a component of this development project. With respect to the retail complex, so I'll pause for just a second. So you've heard the soccer piece, right? And so what your applicant is bringing to you is a development piece where they're going to prepare land for retail development going forward. They won't have any control of the soccer component of that. It is a piece of the overall deal, but in the end, the developer is not about soccer. The developer is about developing retail and commercial use property. So if that's clear. Okay, so the total, so they're going to, again, donate the 21 acres of land to the soccer club. They intend to put in a hotel pad site of anywhere from 100 to 150 rooms. They want to, they're proposing to do a office building pad site of about 40,000 square feet, a retail center pad site of around 65,000 square feet, and 8 restaurants, which might include 2 quick service, 6 full service, of about 26,000 square feet. So that's what we're looking at as retail to support the area, and that's what they would hope will generate the revenues that they're asking for in incentives this evening. The total project costs are approximately $16.5 million. But I need to point out to you that that does not include the vertical construction costs. So we talk about, the city's interest, or your rules on incentives, and you don't want applicants to really ask for more than about 50% incentives to the total cost of the project. This applicant is right now at about 55.36%. But what they haven't included, what many times other developers do, is they haven't included that cost of vertical construction. So while they're preparing the land for this retail and commercial development, they have not added in the cost of these third parties who will then come in and put the walls up and put the buildings up, which will be, right now, it's unaccounted for, but it is an additional investment you will see in the city, because if those third parties don't come in and create those buildings to create that retail and commercial use, there won't be any incentives to give, okay? Okay, so again, it's a $16.5 million project. Their portion will be about 7.4. When I say their portion, this is what you call a pay-as-you-go TIF. Okay, what does that mean? Pay-as-you-go, you may recall, is when a developer upfronts all of the cost of a development, with the hope that once you have made that investment into the community and the thing is built and it starts producing revenues, at that point, and only at that point, if it produces revenues, would they see then incentives. So they're in it 100% upfront to make it happen before they see $1 that you all might approve for them. So the incentives request that they're making is approximately $9 million, which is in the form, as I said, is a pay-as-you-go TIF. That TIF portion is about $7.3 million, and the CID portion is an additional about $1.8 million in incentives for that total of $9.135. There is only going to be one redevelopment project area, and there will only be one redevelopment project that you see there at the bottom. Their projected completion date, according to the plan, is approximately 2030. But like all development, is dependent upon the market. You know, if there are people there that want to build it, you know, it could go faster, it could go slower as a result. But market demand and tenant occupancy will drive that. So we'll dive a little deeper into the public incentives detail. So again, the TIF incentives requested are made up of pilots. If you remember, that's the property tax increase, P, pilots, property tax. And then the EATS portion is the sales tax portion. So pilots, 100% of the incremental increase in revenues. So if you think about what is being produced on this property right now as a whole, that used to, you know, was a strip mine, I believe, or some sort of a mining area, it's not producing much in property tax and nothing in economic activity taxes or retail sales taxes. So that pilots and EATS is about 7.3. With the CID, if you approve the CID as a taxing entity, that taxing entity would impose up a 1% sales tax as proposed, which should produce another $1.8 million. Many times when we are talking with applicants and they want to do TIF in particular, we'll ask them to do CID. These folks, you know, kind of brought it up on their own, but we kind of like CID because, you know, that 1% CID sales tax produces the same amount of revenue as the city's 1% general sales tax. Same, so basically, you know, we add another taxing jurisdiction to kind of jump in, and then, you know, that taxing jurisdiction helps to get that TIF paid down sooner. Okay, so again, that incentive's 9.1. One of the things that we did work out as we negotiated this on the city's behalf is we wanted to make sure that any of this public incentives would absolutely be contingent upon them donating the 21 acres. So they said that they would do it. We're saying, you know, basically, you know, lack of a better way of saying it, put your money where your mouth is. They're gonna donate that money before we have any reimbursements to them. And as I understand it, it will happen much sooner than they would be in a position to start collecting any incentives revenues if you approve this. So what's the redevelopment area we're talking about? Remember, it's that 42 acres. You see on the screen here, your picture to the left shows Christy Drive as it kind of comes around, and you see the Special Olympics facility there kind of at the northwest corner of that photo. The site there where it says kind of City of Jefferson now, that is the area on both sides of Christy Drive. To the right side, you can see a site plan of what they are proposing. And you see there the soccer fields kind of to the northeast side of the diagram, and then you see the various buildings. Again, the applicant will come up and do a presentation, and they're going to get more into what they're building. This is just for our purposes of making sure we hit the marks for TIF. So acquisition did occur prior to 2024. Developer has commenced site clearance, demolition, and grading starting in next year, which is next month now. Who knew? They're going to commence the marketing, leasing, sale, site work, all that going forward. And again, as they anticipate, be about 2030 before it gets finished. Okay, so let's see here. We talked about the proposed financing. This breaks all rules of PowerPoint, but what this is actually it's a screenshot of what you see in the TIF plan. It'll also be a part of the TIF contract. You see why it says Exhibit F, and that is when the applicant comes forward. They say, these are the line items of things that we want to spend the money on, and it also shows the line items of where the money will come from. So just a little more detail of the things that we talked about previously. All right, that's one too far. So that's the summary of the TIF project as it is in the plan. There are 6 findings that are required legally for a TIF. I went into painstaking detail with the TIF Commission. I will not do that to you this evening. I saw that your agenda is very long. We did put the information for you in your TIF packets for this, or your council packets this evening for this item. I am happy to answer questions about any of those findings, but what I can tell you is we believe, our legal opinion is that their plan meets those requirements. You can make those findings. The TIF Commission had that detail. Their recommendation is that you can make those findings. So unless there are further questions, I'll kind of skip ahead to the next portion of that. Yes, sir.
So I understand the donation of the 21 acres for the soccer fields. Are the soccer fields development part of the development, or is that on the other association to develop all that?
The soccer fields are not a part of the TIF application, if that makes sense, right? So the developer is coming and they're saying, we want to build this retail and commercial center that should produce revenues and really would support soccer, but really it might be the other way around in that, and I do these kind of deals all over the state. I've done other soccer deals, and what you find is soccer gets played on the weekends, soccer might get played maybe throughout the summer and so forth, but it's not a 7-day-a-week deal. It might be 3 days a week, and so soccer by itself is not enough to support restaurants, retail, those types of things. And so what I have seen developers do is they will create some sort of a mixed use where maybe there is some office, there are some other reasons to be out there all week long there. So in the end, the soccer, while related, is not a part of the request that's coming this evening. But it's not like we can say don't look at the soccer as we go through it. But we did want to make sure that the soccer that piece got done. It sounds nice to say, hey, we're gonna donate land for this. But if this is a way for us to kind of give the city some teeth to make sure that part happens. Okay. I believe there are some folks that can talk to some of that as well this evening. So again, I'm going to skip through the findings there because of the detail we went into previously. So at this point, Mayor, if I could, I would like to yield the floor to Colby Krzyzanowski from Baker Tilly, who is the city's financial advisor on this project, and have him speak to the issues of the financing components.
Welcome. If you could just reintroduce yourself.
Will do. As Joe mentioned, I'm Colby Krzyzanowski with Baker Tilly, acting as the role of financial consultant to the city of Jefferson City. Do we have Baker Tilly's presentation? I believe this is for the developer. there's a few components to this I can get started on before we put slides up. So, all right. Little purpose and disclosure. Yeah, for sure. So we are here to discuss the financing component of the project, predominantly, as Joe mentioned, in relation to the but-for test, as in would the project proceed but for the incentives proposed in the TIF plan and the associated CID. This study considers the likelihood the project would occur with or without the requested incentives, and it is the project as proposed by the developer.
Could I ask you just speak up just a little bit? It's hard to hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've got fans going, so thank you.
This study considers the likelihood of the project would occur with or without the proposed incentive for the project as proposed, and whether or not it would occur in the current market under current market conditions. BTMA Baker Tilly, we are a consultant hired by the City of Jefferson City, and we have no financial interest in the project. And the but-for test itself is not a statement of feasibility or an analysis of feasibility of the project from sort of its unique market perspective. It's simply evaluating the project for whether or not it is financially viable with or without the incentive. And as Joe mentioned in some detail, our analysis is contingent upon results that are yet to be foreseen, but using the best and most reliable information we have at the time of the analysis. I was going to give them a second to pull it up, but I can keep talking for a little bit.
Yeah,
I know we received the PDF, like it's in the packet, but I don't know that we received a presentation.
Everything we're stating here will also be in the but-for report, so I'd be happy to go over a couple of the details we'd like to continue with the discussion.
Okay.
For the project overview, as noted to some detail earlier, this project is a mixed-use development of about 42 acres in the former quarry site on Christy Drive. There we go. Fantastic. Here's our disclosures. This is not necessarily the interesting part, though I do like to cover it to some detail, what I just discussed. Second, we have our project description, mixed-use development, 42 acres, former quarry site on Christy Drive, combination of quick and full-service restaurants, a hotel, office, and large retail. As Joe noted, we'll get into some of the costs of the project and how the incentive factors in. And as he noted, the vertical construction is not contemplated in what our evaluation was, so that's an important detail. And as noted earlier, the land contribution for the soccer complex is a component of this project, and we'll discuss exactly how that factors into our analysis a little bit later. The request is a TIF reimbursement of pilots and eats generated by the revenues from the future development. There is a 1% CID sales tax, and the net present value of these incentives in total is approximately $9.1 million. We have no project is totally standard, but we do have a standardized approach that we evaluate all these projects on, accounting for whatever details we need to adjust in our approach. The first is to evaluate the applicant's estimated project cost. We have a number of sources and a number of methodologies for doing this, and I'll get into those in a little bit more detail as we get to each of their sections in the report. The second is we evaluate the applicant's estimated project revenues, which is the revenues generated by the project, public and private, but with an emphasis on public as it relates to the incentive. We determine the internal rate of return with and without the incentive. And I'll take a moment to explain exactly what we mean by internal rate of return, which is the project return as it would be in the market. For example, if investors were shopping around for an investment, they would consider the internal rate of return as a means to compare this project to other projects. And that's really a key component of us determining exactly what the viability of this project is from an investment standpoint. And within that, we use an unlevered rate of return, which is a rate of return considering all investment as equity, which just makes it that much more comparable to other projects and investments in the market. Finally, we compare that internal rate of return analysis with and without the incentive to understand how it would lie with investor expectations. Next, we'll talk a little bit about the expense assumptions. We have a truncated version of the budget that Joe had displayed earlier. For the basis of land, we use an independent appraisal. Of the soccer complex provided as part of the materials for this project, and market data from CoStar. For those unfamiliar, CoStar is a national data set of real estate data. It's been around for about 37 years and provides a number of comparable real estate transactions across the country. The soccer complex appraisal was valued at about $4.50 per square foot. The projected land value of $4 per square foot in the surrounding area. And we did omit the value of the donated land from the project pro forma, as it was a donation by the developer. So that was an appropriate adjustment to the project when we evaluated it for this but-for analysis. As for the hard costs, for the third-party site work, utility, and pavement quotes, there were reliable quotes that seemed in line with much of the other projects, much of the other data that we would see for a project like this. Moving on a little bit to the revenue assumptions. For the pad site sales, we had sales totaling approximately $10 million or $10.93 per square foot. We again used CoStar as a basis of comparison for comparable land sales in the Jefferson City area, and those sales totaled at approximately 8.62 square foot on average. These ranges can be wide, and we found that the 10.93 was well within range of what we would expect for comparable land sales for a project like this. I explained internal rate of return a little bit earlier, but that sets us up for this slide to understand exactly what the conclusions of our analysis outline. The market rate of return expectations from the PricewaterhouseCoopers Real Estate Investor Survey in the third quarter of 2024 in strip center development is the data point we used. And to explain that a little further, PricewaterhouseCoopers is a national survey of investors where they compare a broad series of investments across a lot of different categories, and it really is the industry standard benchmark for something like this. We ordinarily use a hypothetical sale to value the asset. However, this is a pad sale transaction, so to value the asset in the long term, we use the cash flow from the incentives as a means to get to this metric. The internal rate of return without the incentives is negative for this project, and that negative return is driven by a number of factors, including the soccer complex land donation and the extensive site work used to remediate the project. I'll draw some attention to the graph. The PwC investor survey boundary is between 6.5 and 11%, and we see this project lies just under the project with incentive lies just under the bottom of that boundary. In summary, the project requires acquisition and preparation for vertical development of a 42-acre former quarry site. The applicant's cost and revenue assumptions appear reasonable based on the third-party data sources that we use to evaluate this project. The forecasted internal rate of return without incentives is negative, and the project is burdened by some other factors such as the soccer complex land donation and significant site remediation. The determination of the report is that this project would not occur in the current marketplace without the requested incentive. And our presentation is fairly short. That's all I have to say.
All right.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Any other consultants?
None for the city, Your Honor, but the applicant would.
Yeah, we'll get to the applicant, but no other further. All right, now with the follow-up presentation from the applicant, Land Investments LLC. You just identify yourself. Thanks for being here.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Ben Musholt with Pulcinelli Law Firm. I'll have this slideshow that's been shown about 3 times already. That's me tonight. So you guys get to see what's inside this one. I want to first off, thank you guys for being here tonight. Appreciate your time. This is, a very long and drawn out matter, but we appreciate it. And same with the city staff for all the work that they've put in already. I'm here to ask tonight for your support on this athletic development along with the commercial and retail development that goes along with it. The next few slides, I'm going to highlight the project and our request for incentives. So the developer owns about 42 acres that's adjacent to the Special Olympics of Missouri. As you can see, it's along Christy Drive at the intersection of Highway 54, 179 right there. It's a former limestone quarry, and it's currently inactive. However, there is rock that still remains on the site. The rock that's on there has been sold for future jobs, so we're clearing that off of there, as well as it's likely going to be used with the athletic field development. So there's going to be a good transition of rock right there. Quarry operations have ceased, so now it is just a vacant ground, and we've had a blight study performed on the ground to determine if it was blighted, and in order for TIF, it needs to be blighted, and in this case, it is deemed a blighted area. It is important to note that there are some difficulties with developing this site. First, there's a lot of demolition and excavation that's required for this site. A lot of infrastructure that needs to go into it. That's because it is a vacant, blighted site. However, a good portion of the demo and grading has already occurred, and most of it's underway or will be underway in the event that incentives are awarded. We do have a commercial interest in the site. However, to make this development work, we do require public assistance. And then like all retail development, commercial development, it is market sensitive. So despite these few challenges, we think this is a great site for redevelopment prospects. It's conveniently located with great access for people in town as well as visiting people from out of state. So the private-public partnership is key for this project. We cannot move forward with this project unless there are public incentives. The city's previously used public incentives in a private-public partnership to benefit the community. It's been successful with it, as well as doing similar projects with this developer that has been successful. The public-private partnership is going to achieve several public goals. First, the redevelopment of this underutilized blighted asset, which is in a great location. We're going to create long-term assets that will generate future tax revenues. And there's also going to be spin-offs, economic benefits, spinning off from this project, such as increased commerce, synergies with other nearby assets, and increased employment and tourism profile. So one great thing about this project, we already have half the development area covered. It's going to be United Capital City Soccer. They're ready to start construction on these high-quality athletic fields. They're going to take pretty much the northern half of the project area. It's going to be a great project that will, it's going to be a great development, and that's going to help kick us off with the remaining development. So we envision the remaining development to consist of a hotel pad site, office building, retail center, 6 or 7 restaurants, and a parking lot that's going to service all the commercial, retail, restaurant sites, along with the required infrastructure and site amenities. There's some notable features about this development. First, it's going to be a perfect fit next to the athletic fields that are going to be built, along with Special Olympics already being there. Special Olympics host various athletic events throughout the years. And these athletic fields that will be built are going to be a great expansion opportunity. One of the goals, I know, is to relocate certain tournaments that are from outside of Missouri and outside of Jefferson City to this site. So that's going to mean that there's going to be a direct need for overnight lodging, dining, and retail. All of this is going to be within walking distance from the athletic complex. With this, there's going to be an influx of families and tournaments. That's going to increase people in town, which will help tourism of downtown, the riverfront, other areas around town. And this is also a redevelopment, a complete redevelopment, and this is a blighted area, so it's going to be much better to look at a beautified development instead of a vacant quarry. And as we mentioned, here's the site plan. This is our vision of how it's going to look. It's preliminary. The parking for the soccer may switch to the north side of the soccer fields, or the athletic fields, but for the most part, the interior and southern portion of the retail and commercial area, that's what we view. We've got the hotel, office building within the center area, along with several restaurants and retail, and then we've got the larger retail center to the south with restaurants along Christy Drive. Again, this is preliminary, but this is how we view the best setup for it. So it's good that we have a occupant ready to move in. United Capital City Soccer is ready to go. But again, there is a lot of work that needs to be done beforehand, a lot of infrastructure and other development. And without these incentives and considering the current lending environment, this project is not feasible. That's why we're requesting a 23-year TIF and a 1% CID sales tax that's going to assist with the redevelopment costs, such as the site work, infrastructure, pad site development, and other third-party expenses. And as we heard earlier tonight, this does not include vertical construction. That is a much larger cost that's going to be on the developer and its occupants to handle. One other thing that we'd like to note, reimbursable costs. There is a cap on those reimbursable costs. So once the developer hits that cap, there's no more reimbursement to the developer. The TIF is complete, and the city will then take the full increment on the real property tax. And as you can see on this slide, public assistance is needed to generate a modest return with a substantial risk by the developer. Some of the estimated economics, we estimate the total project cost to be about $16.5 million. And again, this is pad site ready, not vertical construction. The TIF incentives total about 7.3, with the CID about 1.8 million. So that gets us to our total incentive cost of about 9.1. And that, as it was mentioned earlier, it's about 55% of project costs. However, when you do factor in vertical construction, we've taken the time to get some quotes, run some numbers, it ends up dropping to about 11.5%. So it's significantly less than what we're asking for. The rate of return, as you can see, without incentives, it's negative 52%, which is totally not feasible. But when we do factor in incentives with the pad site readiness infrastructure that we're asking for, that's about 7.3%. So a couple takeaways from this. We need the incentives. The project requires the requested incentives. Otherwise, it's not feasible based on the risk that we're going to incur. The city's financial consultant prepared the but-for analysis. They agree with our analysis as well. The level of incentive support is reasonable compared to the project costs. The rate of return is also reasonable based on this type of project and the risk that the developer will take on. The developer has a track record of completing similar projects, and a significant portion of the project is already going to the athletic fields, which are in high demand. So it's good to have an occupant that knows what they're doing up there. And then it's that development of the soccer athletic complex, we think it's going to help kick off the remaining development. It'll give us a chance to aggressively market the property. We can say, look what's being built here. Here's what's going to come with your restaurant, with your retail. So we think that's going to be a very good marketing tool for us. And a couple key considerations. As it was mentioned earlier tonight, the incentives are crucial because the developer will donate the 21 acres. But in order to make the donation, the incentives are a necessity for the actual development. The TIF revenue streams are utilized on the pay-as-you-go basis. So that means the city's not issuing any debt. There's no debt for the city. It's all on the developer to actually develop the ground. If we don't develop it, or if it's slow to develop with vertical construction, then there's no tax revenue. We don't get reimbursed. So there's definitely, the developer is incentivized to develop this area and do it fast. As you can see, there's some uncaptured sales tax on the property. City and county, they're going to receive half the sales tax from the project, but once that reimbursement that cap is hit, then the full freight goes back to the city and county. And it's hard to understand this at times, but it's important to note that without this, so even with these incentives in place, the city and county are going to receive more than if this development did not occur. They're going to receive more than they would on a vacant quarry. Personal property tax is going to remain uncaptured. It's going to create the long-term taxable assets that we mentioned. So once again, the development of vertical construction is going to be much higher, the tax revenue on that, rather than a vacant quarry. These requested support is going to allow us to do this project now. We have an active user that wants to get in there and start development. I know they are ready to go and they're eager to start their project. And then it also allows us to market the project a lot better to potential tenants. And as Mr. Lauber mentioned, the TIF Commission did recommend this. Last week, we spent several hours with them going through it, and they gave us a recommendation for approval. And lastly, and one of the most important things, this developer has a vested interest in the success of this project as well as the city. So I think it's an all-around benefit for the city and the developer if we can make this project a reality. So I'd be happy to take any questions regarding the TIF or CID for you. Yes?
Well, I think we're going to go to the public hearing and then we'll do council questions and we'll try to do them all at the same time.
Happy to do that. Thank you.
All right, is there any member of the public that is wishing to comment on this project? Either the TIF plan. All right, seeing none. Then we'll go ahead. If there are council questions, Councilwoman Joe, who did you want to raise the question to?
I believe it would be for you about the TIF.
Yeah, if you could just come back. Sorry, only make you shuttle back and forth.
I want to make sure I understand correctly. Within the TIF district, if we approve this without the incentive for vertical development, is there an opportunity later for the developer to come in and ask for additional incentives, or would this be a one-time decision?
I think Mr. Lauber might be able to address that one for you.
So it is possible under the TIF Act to request a modification to the TIF. It would require the same process that you've already seen that we've gone through at that point. It is unlikely. I think, when we work with applicants, it's kind of, this is going to be your one bite at the apple on that. And so I think, with them coming forward, is it possible for them to ask? Sure, they could ask. Would the TIF Commission necessarily recommend approval? That remains to be seen. Would the council approve it? That would remain to be seen. We would discourage that if that were to come about, just because, again, this was their bite at the apple.
Councilman Miller?
Thank you. This question may be for either of you, but at the property, has a phase 1 environmental assessment been completed, and if so, what was the outcome of that?
I can tell you, I don't know the most recent one that we've completed on there. I know that there, for example, there's no underground storage tanks or anything like that have been on the property. It's been just a limestone quarry the whole time, and the soccer folks may do their own due diligence once they are in charge of the property. So I think I would assume everyone's going to make sure before we start digging that it will be properly vetted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is a tough hypothetical, and I know this is based on project potential completion of 2030 is what you're looking for.
Yes, sir.
But if you reach that and you built it out the way that you planned, the way you presented, any way to put a number, economic development and economic impact on this project to our city?
I don't know that we could do that. I can tell you that our estimates that if we were to just construction costs alone would be, $70 million or so to build out, as we said. That, would, as Mr. Lauber mentioned, we're not going to seek any of that as reimbursement, nor can we. We've got our cap at 16, or at 9 million, I guess. So that's at least what we would project that, but we can't. The crystal ball again, yeah. But we would expect a large increase.
Mr. Mayor.
All right, I would entertain a motion from council then to close the public hearing for the proposed Christy Drive tax incentive financing redevelopment plan.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Reichel, I think Councilman Hazelton had his hand up second. Any other comments? All in
Mr. Mayor?
favor to close the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Public hearing is now closed, so you have Bill 2024-062 in front of you.
Mayor, so the first reading, so this is just first reading. We'll take it up for final approval at the January 6th meeting.
Okay.
So for these TIF contracts, they go a little bit out of order where we do the public hearing at first reading as opposed to second or third reading. No further action is needed on 062. Proceed on 063.
Mayor, quick question. If we were so inclined, if we were able, suspension of the rules, would it apply in this case, or is it not available because of TIF?
That is a great question. I would probably say that suspension of rules is probably not going to be the best course of action in this particular matter. There's a pretty regimented TIF schedule that everyone has agreed to, and so that contemplates taking it up for final approval on the 6th. So I wouldn't recommend that.
All right, so you come for Councilman Larson?
That was it, thanks.
Okay. All right, so next is item 2024-063.
So,
I'll read the bill.
well, did you do the vote on the first read? Did I miss that? And I was maybe.
We don't vote on it.
There is no vote on first.
There's no vote on first read. Okay, gotcha. All right, thank you.
2024-063, an ordinance approving a tax increment financing contract between the City of Jefferson, Missouri and Land Investments LLC for the implementation of the Christy Drive tax increment financing code and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
We'll go through essentially the same process.
A little less this time. Mayor, members of the council, the item before you at this point then is that TIF contract. With your first read of the plan, when you move forward to January 6th, once you vote on the matter, if you approve the TIF, then the TIF contract is designed to be that rules of engagement between the council and the applicant, who would then be your developer, because you've selected them through the TIF plan. And so it's a large document. I'm sure you all read it, with great interest over the weekend, and it was the only thing you had on your agenda. It's usually 50, 60 page contract. What I'm going to do for you this evening is kind of just point out some of the basics of that TIF contract. Obviously, it lines out the project details, everything like that we've already covered through the plan. So what does it get down to? Like every contract, there's going to be obligations and duties on both sides. There's benefits to both sides. So the most obvious thing is the developer's going to build the thing, right? So that's what we want out of that. And the developer in exchange for that says, though, but if we build the thing, we need the incentives. And so the contract covers that. A couple more things that are things that we've just kind of learned as we've gone through these over the years. Couple things to add is, one is we did do some discussion about what happens if they fall out of compliance with getting the project done on time frames, or they're not building what they said they were going to build. And so we do have some provisions in there regarding potential breach, or if we think there's a breach, what it takes to cure. We give them notice and they have to fix that. So if they aren't following the rules that are set up, then we have to give them notice, and they have to start curing whatever that break is within 60 days, and they have from that point 120 days to finish, so that we kind of keep things moving along on the path that was set forward. We've put requirements in that help the city from the standpoint of making sure that that if they said they're going to spend their $7 million on the project, that we make sure that they spent their $7 million on the project before we turn that over. There's the provision about transferring the property to the soccer club upon approval of the incentive. So that is all in there. There is a requirement that they will need to make annual reports. So once this is up and running, these things do take usually a period of years, but you'll see the applicant come in each year to just lay out for you. Remember clear back in Christmas time and 2024 when you approved this TIF, here's where we are with it, and this is what we're doing. So that's a requirement in the TIF contract to make sure that you get regular updates on that. They're required to make annual reports. There is a provision in there where the city will actually perform some administration of the TIF, and there's essentially an administrative fee that offsets the city staff's cost of doing that. So the citizens aren't having to bear the cost of administering this. It kind of works through the project itself. So we provide that information. There are a few obligations on the tenants in the TIF and the CID areas, and primarily they go with limitations on what can be there in the area. So we kind of put some limitations on auto repair, adult entertainment, vaping shops, those types of things. Probably don't want those out there with the soccer kids. The contract also requires that the tenants collect and remit taxes in compliance with the project. Obviously, that's kind of the point of the incentives. One of the things that you may know is that you can't share information as a city. If you get information from the Department of Revenue on taxes, you cannot share that. But this information needs to be reported as a result of that. So it creates a format that requires some reporting of the taxes. So the city has a different source than Department of Revenue. For those who know about the Department of Revenue rule, if you share the Department of Revenue's information, it's potentially a felony offense for the people who do that. So we create a safe harbor essentially to get the information in a different way in that circumstance. So let's see. Also, if this property is sold or transferred, the developer, needs to notify the city to let them know. It's kind of the old we want to dance with the one that brought us rule, and so they have to let you know in that circumstance when that happens. The TIF contract talks about the fact that the applicant is expected to establish a CID, which we're going to get to next. And with that, I'll actually yield the floor for any questions as far as anything with respect to the TIF contract. Happy to answer those.
Let's do the same format. Does the applicant have anything additional to add?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, let's go to questions, council. Any questions on 2024-63, 063? All right.
2 down, 2 to go.
Wow.
I know Ryan's going to get nervous here because we're really close to that under on 60 minutes. So.
All right, next is the public hearing on Christy Drive CID petition.
Sorry, Bill. 2024-064, an ordinance approving the petition to establish the Christy Drive Community Improvement District and establishing the Christy Drive Community Improvement District.
So, Mayor, you did open the hearing? Excellent. Okay. So again, we've discussed the details ad nauseum of this project this evening. So we're going to talk now about the Community Improvement District. So by state statute, the law requires that a petition be filed and that it's considered by this council. This council or the governing body of any city where a CID petition is put in, you are the ones who authorize life to be breathed into these entities. So the Community Improvement District has the same boundaries of the TIF that you saw earlier. So your photo on the left side of the screen is exactly the same as what we saw earlier this evening. That red line is the CID boundary that is being proposed. The CID, as proposed, will be a separate political subdivision of the state, and that then gives it authority to impose sales tax, which is what is being proposed in this petition. As I mentioned earlier, having a sales tax for another entity like that only helps to pay the TIF down sooner, because that 1% sales tax is equal to your 1% general fund, right? Okay. So this also allows the applicant to be reimbursed by funds generated by the CID. One of the beauties of a CID is the fact that the CID can only collect money within its boundaries and can only spend money within its boundaries. And we really like these because, you know, in essence, when we've asked a developer to help pitch in this way, the good thing is they kind of have maybe created a little bit of a competitive disadvantage for themselves, right? This tax is not something that's going to apply citywide. It will apply only within the boundaries of this CID, so it's very laser focused in that way. Okay, very quickly, I'm going to go through the components of the CID petition, just to say that we can check the box that it has been met. So the state statute does require that a petition be signed by more than 50% of the property owners within a CID, and that's by two different ways of counting. One is for the head count of how many property owners there are, and the second is to do that through the assessed valuation of the property within the district. So we had to make sure that everybody was covered there. That was easy to do in this one. The name of the district will be the, let me make sure I'm on the, so the name of the district will be the Christy Drive Community Improvement District. The legal description and map were included in the petition. It will be, as I mentioned, a political subdivision type that authorizes the tax. It will have a 5-member board of directors that governs it, and we have made the applicant require in the petition, which kind of serves as a little mini constitution of the CID, if you will, that 2 of those members must be elected or appointed officials of the city of Jefferson, so that there will always be some city oversight on the governing body of this political subdivision. The applicant has provided the name of 3 initial directors, and the city will pick the remaining 2. After the initial appointments, the mayor, with the advice and consent of the city council, will appoint those directors. The CID, as I mentioned, will be authorized to impose a 1% sales tax. That's the statutory maximum that is allowed. And the district will last for 23 years. That is also the statutory max on that. Believe it or not, when I first started out as a baby attorney, you can make CIDs perpetual. They could last forever, but the General Assembly did curb that a couple of years ago to 23, and that's the number of years, again, on this one. A blight study was presented with the TIF commission, or the TIF public hearing, and that blight finding can apply then also to the CID petition, which authorizes some blight funds to be used. There was a 5-year plan included in the petition that meets all the statutory requirements. And so based on our review of the CID petition and its position as a component of the overall incentives package, we believe that the city council has all the information necessary for it to approve the petition to establish the Christy Drive CID. Mayor, I have nothing further on the CID petition public hearing.
All right. Any other consultants? The applicant. If you just identify yourself.
Yes,
Thank you.
Ben Muschelt with the Pulcinelli Law Firm. Just to reiterate, as Mr. Lauber mentioned, thanks. The sales tax is it's only within that district. It's not a citywide tax. It's going to affect everyone. It is it's on that area, and then it can only be spent in that area as well. So just not a citywide tax. That's always one thing we'd like to clarify. Any questions for us?
All right. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak? All right, council, any questions of the consultants?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once this is approved, does the appointing of the 5 boards have to commence quickly to get this, an action taken?
Yeah, so with the applicant's petition, they actually named their 3 members in the petition itself, so those have already been decided. Once the city determines who your 2 directors are, that board can go forward. I'll be honest with you, there really isn't anything for the CID to do at this point. I've seen it where we've left a meeting like this, if you were voting to actually establish, pass the ordinance, where they go across the street and they have a meeting. That's not happening here. So you have plenty of time before they would need to do that. They do have, one of the things that would require us to want to move that forward quickly would just be the fact that for them to be able to get their sales tax, just like a city sales tax, must be put on a ballot and must be voted on by the property owners of the district, and it follows some of the Chapter 115 rules, and so they would just want to get that done as soon as possible. They have to form themselves, create bylaws, breathe life into themselves, and they would have to pass a resolution to impose that sales tax and put it on a ballot. So,
all right, thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions, we will need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it takes us to consider Bill 2024-065.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri authorizing the mayor to enter into a cooperative agreement with the Christy Drive Community Improvement District for funding and financing of community improvement district improvements in relation to the Christy Drive tax increment financing plan.
Mr. Lauer.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Members of the council. Last one for this, at least. I know you still have a long meeting to go, so we'll go quick. All right, so this, much like when we just talked about the TIF contract, this is the CID cooperative agreement. So this is that rules of engagement. Now there's 3 parties involved, assuming that you approve by ordinance at your January 6th meeting, the CID. So you have the city, the CID, and then the developer will all, work together in 3 parts to do that. So like everything else, it's just the rules of engagement. So the CID board will be responsible for overseeing the operations of the district, including their accounting and budgeting provisions. Let's see if I have actual slides on this. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, here we go. So they're going to be responsible for the accounting and budgeting functions. So by statute, the Department of Revenue collects the CID sales taxes just like it does the cities, right? So the retailers collect the sales tax from a shopper. They remit that to Department of Revenue. Department of Revenue processes that. 4 to 6 weeks later, we usually see it come back. Same thing with that. They will be responsible for those functions. The city council will have the opportunity to review and comment on the district's annual budget each year. That's a statutory requirement that you have that ability to have oversight over their budget. So that is included. Because the district is within the TIF redevelopment area, half of the district's sales tax, assuming it is approved and collected, 50% of that is brand new revenue, so it's incremental. It goes to pay off the TIF. The other 50% passes through to the CID, and then so it needs to be spent also on the project. And so the cooperative agreement covers that. The district will keep its own records relating to the collection and expenditures of the sales tax revenues. That sales tax will be in place for 23 years unless it is terminated earlier. So, and I just realized that back on the TIF contract, Mr. Muschel mentioned that there's a cap on the TIF revenues. That development agreement, the TIF contract, is where that cap is found. It basically says that you guys said you needed 9.1. We're not going to give you a dime more than that. And that's, it'll shut everything off if they get the 9.1 much sooner. Similarly, once all of the TIF and CID costs have been repaid under this, if it happens sooner, everybody wants this, right? The developer wants a super successful project. We would like to see a super successful project because it pays down sooner and gets everybody back on just regular tax collection. So But this does say that we'll shut it off sooner than the 23 years that the CID can exist, and so forth. The CID improvements include site work, grading, infrastructure improvements, parking lot and landscaping, demo, construction, installation of sidewalks, curbs, streetlights, and storm sewers. So that's why we want to create a CID, because it can do all of those kind of public improvements, because it is its own political subdivision from that standpoint. Okay. That is all that I have for you on the CID cooperative agreement. Happy to answer any questions.
Any other consultants to speak on? Applicant? All right, any questions of any of the three? You covered a lot of material. I think that closes our conversation. You've got 4 bills that will be on the January 6th council agenda. So,
if you do have questions between that time and tonight, if you could get them to us, we would really appreciate it. If something comes up, maybe a constituent talks to you. I, unfortunately, with the timing of things kind of slipping back, I will be out of the country on the 6th, but my actually the person who did all the hard work, truly, Lindsay Kolish, my associate, is here this evening. She's been through this whole thing from start to finish, and she will be here to get you across the goal line on the 6th.
Questions will be funneled through me.
So yes, if you could try to get, if you have specific questions, that will help our discussion on the 6th. So if you want them to come to you, thanks.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
All right, let's continue on the agenda now. We're going to move on over to page 2. Appointments by the mayor, item number 7. Got a motion and a second. Hands up, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, presentations from staff, consultants, invited guests. 8A. CVB.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Ms. Gillespie is
I apologize.
fascinated with our CID presentation.
Yeah, Luke was, he was bothering me, so, thank you.
Fall asleep.
I'm sorry?
At least you didn't fall asleep.
I didn't fall asleep, but yeah.
Just identify yourself and welcome.
Thank you. Diane Gillespie, I'm Director of the Jefferson City Convention Business Bureau. Thanks for being here, inviting me to be here to present our 2025 proposed budget. I believe you have it in your system, and I know you guys are running late tonight, so I'm going to make it as brief as I can. I also have Carol Burkhead, who is with Burkhead and Associates. She is our accountant, so if there are any technical questions that I can't answer, I will hand them off to Carol. Briefly, the information that I have for you is kind of a summary of the 2025 Jefferson City proposed budget. I've broken it down into our revenues, and the lodging tax at $632,930, and that is a 2% increase over this year's proposed budget. Prison tour tickets at $627,300. And then the remaining items, briefly on the Missouri Division of Tourism Co-op, $94,000. They have a program that's a 50-50 match for us that allows us to do a lot of our advertising that we would not be able to do if we did not have that money. And then our total budget for 2025 is at $1.5 million. That's about a 5.5% increase over this year's. Going down into expenses, I think the biggest one to look at is our marketing at 57% of our budget. And it's at $896,900. So that's where we try to put the majority of our money, is toward marketing of Jefferson City. Each month, it's either the exec committee or our full board that will review financials. If we see that revenues are not coming in, we do make adjustments. Also, as you know, we run the MSP tours. We do keep those two accounts separate. So you have lodging tax account and you have MSP revenues and expenses that are separated. Any questions?
Questions? Councilman Lester.
So one thing that kind of jumped out was under admin and general expenses under the miscellaneous expenses, that substantial increase.
Under, I'm sorry, miscellaneous?
Miscellaneous expenses under admin in general. It's 6280.
What was it?
Account number 6280.
6280?
It's like 10,000 more than.
Yeah, so I added some additional dollars in there just because of miscellaneous expenses that we're not sure what will come up. That money may be put back into the marketing side of it. You know, we do this budget before our end of the year is over with, and so I always kind of stash a few dollars into some of the accounts just in case, kind of as backup. And if you'll notice, if you go into marketing expenses, I did the same this year with a miscellaneous marketing category, because I do know that we have some items coming up, such as the soccer complex, and also I know that the birthday of Jefferson City's birthday, some expenses there that I want to be able to, instead of designate them right now, we have some additional dollars that we can pull out at that point.
Mainly flexibility.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and those will be adjusted again if revenues, if revenues increase or decrease.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We do need a motion to approve. Second. A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, guys.
Welcome to stay around.
Oh, well, I will for Molly's.
Item D, Brian is going to present an exciting project.
Yeah, I know. I was hoping the crowd would stay here. They all left. I know they all left. That's okay.
And if you would introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Molly Bryan. I'm our Public Information Coordinator here at the city. I'm going to do a quick logo presentation that you guys will have a resolution on later in the meeting to approve if you choose to do so. So first, this was a project that was identified in our Activate 2040 plan under Capital, Culture, and Healthy Living. It was an objective to solidify Jefferson City's branding and identity. And to tell you the truth, when I first started over here with J.C. Parks a few years ago, they had updated their branding, I think, in 2018. And I took a look at the city and I said, wow, the city needs to go through the same process. And so luckily when this position opened and I applied, one of the things I brought up in my interview was tackling this project. So what we were kind of seeking out is the visual brand, right? So that includes your logo, your color, your typography, and a style guide to really enhance the cohesiveness throughout all of the city departments. As you can see, we have a city seal, which is going to remain being our city seal used to authenticate and certify official documents. But a logo is really meant to be a simple visual for the public to be easily recognize your organization. Build that awareness and trust, and you want something that's really easy to reciprocate and produce. And while our seal is an amazing historical seal with a lot of symbolism, unfortunately, as you can see in the images, it just doesn't replicate very great on embroidery, apparel, business cards. It's different in a lot of different settings. So let me see here. So we went through an RFP process. We chose a company out of Kansas City called Novella Brand House. I have two representatives from the company on right now to talk a little bit. We had input from JC Rep, CVB, Parks, City Department, stakeholders, community members, and there were a lot of considerations taken to represent Jefferson City's history, culture, and aspirations. I wanted to make sure that we picked a company who demonstrated in their proposal that they could pivot on design work, something they could be modern, they can be historical, and they can be really versatile. And Novella has great experience. They had a great team to work with, and I think Jefferson City has spent a lot of resources to try to attract new, younger people to the area, and I thought Novella would be a great team to tackle it. So if they're on now, I'm so glad you guys stayed with us. If they're going to talk a little bit about the inspiration for the seal, They took a visit to Jefferson City, did a deep dive, and we did a little tour of the city and just talk a little bit about the logo.
Yeah, so I mean, exactly what Molly said. We definitely got an awesome tour of the city and got to really take some inspiration. We wanted to make sure we were representing all parts of the city. So we looked at things like bridges, we looked at the Capitol Dome, both the outside of the building as well as the inside and some of the...
Hey, Abby, hold on. We're going to turn you up a second.
Oh, okay.
Do you try again?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Is that better? No?
Better?
Liz, do you want to try?
No, Abby, that was better.
That one was better?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I was just kind of echoing what you were saying, that we really wanted to kind of approach all parts of Jefferson City when we were looking at this. So we did pull inspiration from all over the place. Definitely bridges, multiple bridges across the city, the Capitol Dome, both the inside and the outside of it. So we looked a lot at the architecture, some of the patterns that you might see inside of the building itself. We looked at the river. We looked at parks and trails and paths, different historical markers, different historical architecture. We did a lot of just deep dive into when the city was founded all the way up to where it is now. And so we really kind of wanted to make sure we were looking at a lot of different directions for this, as well as bringing in, just different people that were that work within the city and getting a lot of good insight on why they love the city and what the community means to them. So we also looked at things like events and different things that bring the community together. And so ultimately, as you'll see in the logo, we did end up pulling some elements directly from the Capitol Dome, but then we also were, like Molly said, able to pull together elements from the bridge, multiple bridges, from the river, from the railroad tracks even as well. So we're really excited with what we came up with. We definitely wanted something that felt very modern, but also had kind of a historical context to it as well, just since this is, the capital city and a really important piece of Missouri as well.
And my name is Elizabeth McFadden. Oh, am I on mute? No, okay. My name is Elizabeth McFadden, and I'm the CEO and Director of Brand Strategy at Brand House. So thank you all so much for allowing us to work on this. It was an amazing project. Abby is the creative director, and we've worked on a number of these kinds of projects before, and we know that it's important to represent the history of a community, the people, but also the future as well. And so we tried to bring all of that together into the new visual identity for the city.
Awesome, thank you guys. Just to show, I can go. Okay. Can you click the next slide, Logan? Thanks. Okay, thank you. Here's a couple of different applications that can show, as you can see, the color palette and how it's going to be used going forward. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the implementation. It's going to be gradually rolled out to minimize costs, beginning with digital platforms. You're going to start seeing it as we order new business cards, truck wraps, apparel, things like that. It's going to be out with the seal, use it as our logo, and in with this. So while it's not going to all happen tomorrow, you will be seeing this over the next 12 to 18 months, start rolling out more of the city products. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have any for me.
Questions? Good job. Thank you. All right. Takes us to item 9. Announcements by mayor, council, and staff. Councilman Allers, admin committee.
We're scheduled for none at this time.
All right. Pushed into next year.
Yep.
Finance committee, I think I still have Councilman Schwartz.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Canceled for December. Everybody have a Merry Christmas. We'll see you next year.
Councilman Lightman. Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We as well won't have a meeting in December, but we'll be back in January on the 23rd at 4 o'clock in the police training room.
Councilman Spencer, Public Works.
Our next meeting will be next year, January 9th at 7:30 a.m. here in the council chambers.
Any other announcements? All right, takes us to the consent agenda. You have a number of items in front of you.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Item 11A, bills introduced. I would remind you there's a check mark there, 2024-060.
An ordinance authorizing the city of Jefferson, Missouri to enter into a master equipment lease purchase agreement and related schedules of equipment to pay costs of acquiring certain equipment and vehicles for the city, approving certain documents, and authorizing certain other actions in connection therewith.
Chief, are you going to talk about this, or Mr. Bangy?
Let David have it. Yeah, so I can talk.
Welcome. Take a new seat.
Thank you. It's good to be here. So this is an agreement that basically is going to allow the city to purchase equipment and vehicles, which was, a lot of this was approved within the budget process that you all had finished up for this coming year. And so it's kind of divided into three pieces. There is an equipment schedule that includes some dump trucks, bobcats, excavators, and some large pickup trucks for the street department. This is one element of that. That will be basically financed over a 10-year period. There's some police vehicles that will be financed over a 4-year period, and then a series of Chevy Trax and Ford Ranger pickup trucks that will be shared between Public Works and Land Protective Services. That will be sort of the fleet vehicles for the city, and so that is a third component that will be financed over a period of 5 years. So the lease agreement that's set up to sort of fund all of this is set up for this fiscal year. So then the council would have the opportunity of budgeting for those same costs in the following years to keep that lease process going. So after those years, whether they be 4, 5, or 10, then those vehicles would become, the city would own those vehicles outright at that point. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Councilman Leipold, did you have any requests?
Yes, sir. I'd like to suspend the rules. Approval of this.
Second. We don't need a second. Is there any opposition to it? All right, we'll ask the clerk to go ahead and read the bill a second time.
An ordinance authorizing the city of Jefferson, Missouri to enter into a master equipment lease purchase agreement and related schedules of equipment to pay costs of acquiring certain equipment and vehicles for the city, approving certain documents, and authorizing certain other actions in connection therewith.
All right, you have 2024-060 in front of you. Are there any other comments or questions? We'll do a roll call vote then.
Hazelton?
Aye.
Job?
Aye.
Lester?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Neely?
Aye.
Schwartz?
Aye.
Spencer?
Aye.
Spicer?
Aye.
Young?
Aye.
Allers?
Aye.
Bill passes.
Great, thanks. Next item is 2024-061.
An ordinance of the city of Jefferson, Missouri authorizing a supplemental appropriation to the Jefferson City Police Department, amending the 2024-2025 annual budget and authorizing the expenditure of such funds.
Chief.
Mr. Mayor.
As stated, this is a request to utilize $39,000 of our drug forfeiture treasury funds for the purpose of an audit and inventory of our police department evidence room. It's been several decades since we've undertaken something that I think is very important as handling other people's property and evidence to just make sure everything is running as it should be. There's no indications of anything going wrong. It's just a way for us to verify that what we're doing is correct.
Questions or comments? All right, thanks. We've already introduced 62, 63, 64, and 65, so that'll take us to 2024-066.
An ordinance approving a real estate agreement between the city and 318 Jefferson Street LLC and a related budget amendment.
Mr. Moore.
Thank you. Approval of this bill would approve a real estate agreement between the city and 318 Jefferson Street LLC for the purchase of a warehouse structure at 101 West Wall Way. So that's roughly at the corner of Jefferson and McCarty, roughly. But the purchase price is $350,000. The requested supplemental appropriation is for $365,000 just to cover some closing costs. But essentially, the purchase of this building with the last flexibility for future parking operations with demolition of the parking garage is going to be undertaken. We thought this was a good opportunity to acquire some real estate that could really serve some city needs that we foresee coming in the near future. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I compliment you and our city administrator. Some that have been on council a few years may recognize this property, but the number is much less than it was last time. So thank you very much. Questions or comments? All right, we'll see that on the agenda on January 6th. 24-067.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri adopting elected officials operating guidelines.
Mr. Crane.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This handbook was given to the council at the May retreat, and the administration committee has reviewed this and is asking for approval. It establishes and clarifies processes for the conduct of city business by elected officials, including interactions between council members and staff. We're asking for approval of this document.
Well, it's on for being introduced for tonight, unless you're asking for a suspension.
The suspension of the rules. Go ahead and vote on it.
Second.
Is there any opposition to voting on 2024-067?
I just think it should follow standard process. Before we do.
Got one. Anyone else in opposition to the suspension?
Mr. Mayor, I'll oppose.
All right, we've got two, so that'll be on the agenda for January 6th. All right, thanks. Next item, 2024-068.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri amending city code provisions regarding discipline of the mayor and city council members.
Mr. Crane, or actually, Mr. Mullen.
Thank you. So approval of this bill would amend the existing city code relating to discipline of the mayor and the city council members. The existing city code provides for a mechanism for discipline of the mayor and city council members, and ultimately really with only result of removal. And so this amendment would add some flexibility to discipline procedures to allow for discipline that is less than removal, but still while going through formal processes. Also of note, when I was reviewing the city code and its procedures on removal, I noted some real problematic technical shortcomings in the code. And so in addition to granting some new authority for the city council in handling its own discipline, this bill also addresses some of those technical issues that I found. And so essentially what this the city code would do would establish a procedure for city council members to engage in disciplinary procedures and give some city council some options on how to handle those. So essentially the process would start with someone a council member making a request, or it could be the mayor making a request for discipline that gets moved on to the city council, to the city clerk, and then forward to the city council. And at the point in time that the city council receives a request for discipline, it can do essentially one of three things. First thing that it could do is that it could agree with with the request for discipline, and after an opportunity for the accused elected official to make a response, it can impose discipline. But in that instance, it can only be discipline that's less than a removal, because a more drawn-out due process needs to happen for removal. The city council could call for an investigation. This would allow for the opportunity for fact-finding. The code calls for an outside, unbiased, experienced special investigator outside counsel to conduct that investigation on behalf of the city council, and then come back to the city council with a report on its findings of the investigation. Or the city council could, forego an investigation and just move straight on to trial. Provisions of the trial are pretty substantially similar to what was already in the city code. Probably one major departure is that the current city code calls for the city prosecutor to manage and prosecute these trials on behalf of the city council. City prosecutor being an elected official is kind of part of the political environment of the city, and so I think a better approach was, once again, use independent, unbiased outside counsel to conduct those trials. Once again, kind of moving through the process, there's opportunities for subpoena and production of documents and calling for witnesses. That is similar to what is already contained in the city code, so not a whole lot of change there. But probably the biggest change is the adoption of the very last provision, 270, which allows for discipline less than removal. In addition to removal, the city council can impose discipline under this code in the forms of censure or reprimand, removal as committee chair or vice chair for up to 2 years, and then removal as a council liaison to any or all committees, boards, commissions for up to also 2 years. So like I said, it generally follows what the city council or the city code already has in place for discipline, but allows for some flexibility. It allows for some options that are less than kind of the drastic outcome of removal of a city council member or mayor from office. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. One thing to note though, the reasons for removal are set forth by the city charter. That does not change this. Mayor and city council members can only be removed for reasons that are set forth in the charter. This clarifies that, but just gives a process behind it on how to get to that conclusion if necessary. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So what would be the defined threshold for something that would be grounds for less than removal?
So what the code says is so any of the reasons set forth in the charter could be grounds for removal, but also could serve as grounds for discipline less than removal. So just because there is a finding that someone violated a provision of charter that could authorize removal doesn't mean that the city council has to. So that could be grounds for removal. It says for discipline less removal could include violation of any official obligations, for any culpable official negligence or dereliction of duty, for any conduct inconsistent with official character and duty, including any duly adopted law, ordinance, or policy governing the conduct of the mayor and or council members. So it's really up to the city council. The city council is charged with its own discipline and regulating the conduct of its own members. And so essentially what this code calls for is an identification of the violation. So at the very beginning, a request for discipline has to make an allegation of conduct and then also make an allegation identifying which law, policy, resolution, standard is being violated. And so that's up to the city council to decide whether or not any particular action calls for discipline less than removal. And so it's through the duly enacted policies and ordinances and everything that we do here that the city council says these are the norms that we anticipate people to comply with. Here's the regulations that we need people to comply with, and any violation of those could be subject to discipline. But ultimately, that question is a question that has to be answered by the city council itself.
Councilman Allers, you had your hand up a while ago. You still?
Yeah.
You can ask if you.
I'm just going to do one question I just had, and I just read it on section 3 under B. Ordered it by vote of 6 council members or 5 council members plus the mayor. Is that a low threshold, or do you think that number ought to be more than just 50% of a council on something like that?
So that's a great question, and so that is a question I think that the city council needs to answer for itself. It is less than the standard for removal. Or standard for removal is 7 city council members. And so the idea here is discipline less than removal, a threshold less than removal, but also I could see an argument that says that number needs to be the same. That's at a staff level, we picked a number. Yeah. But I don't think there's any particular ego that goes along with that. That is a policy question that the city council kind of needs to decide whether or not it agrees with. You're not going to hurt my feelings if you go a different direction. I certainly wouldn't make it higher than the threshold for removal, but I think that's an excellent policy question that needs to be answered.
Ryan, isn't that currently the threshold?
So that's part of the technical issue. It's kind of hard to tell. Yeah. And so there is a provision in the current city code that allows for suspension pending an investigation and trial that is set at 6. So this current city code, and part of kind of the reason that we set it below the removal threshold is that the existing practice is to have some action at 6 city council members. So part of the reasoning there, but I don't think there's a right or wrong answer of how the city council wants to approach that.
I've got Councilman Hazelton, Councilwoman Young, and then Councilmember Spencer, and then Councilmember Lester and Lightfoot. Councilman Hazelton, you're up.
So, in summary, this policy basically states that council shall manage itself in any manner it sees fit, any way, any time, as defined by already existing laws. So anything from, I don't like the way a certain member conducted themselves, and I got 5 people agreeing with me on it, well, we're going to say something about it publicly and vote on a resolution. So essentially it's that flexible to where essentially within law, any way, anyhow, anytime.
Yes, I would say that is generally correct, with the only caveat that there needs to be some sort of identified something to say that any particular action was worthy of discipline. If everyone said, hey, we really don't like the fact that Councilmember X chews gum during the council meetings, well, there's nothing that says you can't. So this doesn't provide the opportunity for that type of ad hoc discipline. There needs to be something that you can point to, saying here's a standard, here's a norm that was violated. That would be the only caveat to kind of what you're honing in on thereon.
My question is more of clarification, and maybe I missed it, but I heard you say that right now the city prosecutor is the one who would really carry this out according to the charter.
No, not according to the charter. That's according to code.
According to code.
Yeah.
But an outside entity would have the opportunity to carry out.
Under this change, this calls for outside counsel to manage and prosecute trials on behalf for the city, and then also, if the city council calls for it, to conduct investigations if needed.
That's what I thought I heard you say.
Eliminating the city prosecutor.
Eliminating the city prosecutor out.
Eliminating the city prosecutor, thank you.
Yes.
Because right now, the city prosecutor is paid by the city. Once we source that out, who would be responsible for covering that?
The city.
The city was still covered?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted that to be said. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilman Spencer.
Yeah, just clarification too, to make sure my understanding completely was, is there a provision where it's not just the city council bringing up potential violations, but is there an avenue for staff, city administrator to potentially bring those?
No. So what the charter clearly says, and is inarguable, is that the city council is responsible for its own discipline. And so,
but I'm talking not discipline.
So the way that would have to work is that if the city administrator were aware of some sort of conduct, or myself, or any someone who felt they were aggrieved by a mayor or a city council member, essentially they would need to bring that to the council. And so there's not really a mechanism set forth in this process for staff to get to a city council member to make a request, to make a direct request to the entire city council for an action for discipline. I think what more work would need to be done at a staff level to formalize the process to make sure that employees have a way to get to, likely it would be myself or the city administrator, to start a process. But there is not a direct mechanism for an employee to apply to the entire city council and say, we need to have, you guys need to have a disciplinary hearing on a city council member. That's kind of outside what is contemplated by the city charter. There needs to, essentially, for lack of a better word, there needs to be a sponsor. A council sponsor who will bring the disciplinary action to the city council.
Okay, I get that. I just want to make sure that staff understands that they still have the ability to bring an issue to a council member. That's fully understood, because I don't, like you said, it's not really in there, right? So I kind of call it a little bit of a whistleblower type provision. We allow employee to utilize an anonymous mail complaint to like on our website, email.
So the city's personnel policy manual has a conflict resolution provisions that has a fairly standardized process to go along with that. I would say in most instances that I think you're kind of alluding to, that council member or a city employee would need to utilize that and kind of work that up through the staff administrative process in order to vet that, make sure that's something that is appropriate and ripe to bring to city council. So I think for a staff member, those two processes are going to be married together a little bit. Work the system under the city administrator first, and then figure out, okay, is there another step that needs to be taken here?
And another follow-up, my colleague, Mr. Fosselton, on one of the admin committee meetings, he brought up the suggestion of maybe reducing the pay of city council members. I think that is viable in the sense that if we are reducing the responsibilities of the council members, if you're suspending them from their committee chairs or vice chairs or committees in general, and removing them as liaisons to special boards and commissions, that is part of their responsibility that they're getting compensated for. And if they're no longer doing that, then I don't think they should be receiving the full compensation of the taxpayers' burden. So is that something that we can amend, add?
So I looked at that. The authorities are not helpful as to whether or not a public body can actually do that. At the very, very least, the answer is only after a trial, full-blown trial. So I think that if the city council kind of grabbed that authority for itself, I think there's at least a theory in instances throughout the country where that's been done, but it's not 100% clear whether or not that would stand up to ultimate scrutiny. But with the caveat that absolutely only after a full-blown trial. I cannot sit here and say 100%, yes, that's absolutely a remedy that would work 100% of the time. But I think it is something that could be available to the city, has been used elsewhere in the country. And as long as after a full trial, then, I think the risk profile of that is probably fairly slim.
Well, I appreciate your efforts in this, and you merged a lot of the details that I originally drafted up, and I appreciate that. I was just fulfilling the obligation of the administration chair asking me to participate in that. So, thank you for your work, and your staff as well.
Councilman Lester, then Councilman Michael.
So, to your knowledge, has there ever been occasion to have disciplinary action against council, mayor?
To my knowledge, I haven't seen an instance where a council member was removed, but records are kind of spotty. But to my knowledge, there's not any history of that.
Prior to this council, has there ever been request to have something less than removal disciplinary actions?
Kind of the best I could say is answer your question, no. Have I been asked in my tenure at the city what are options? Absolutely. Before this council, yeah.
I understand that we need to address current issues in terms of disciplinary action with respect to charter. But I really question whether we need to do anything other than doing that. I think the intent of developing the guidelines, I think, was to have clear guidelines that would serve as a deterrent to elected officials violating the codes. I mean, once we had the guidelines, then the public and the news media, staff, or elected officials themselves could reference the guidelines and call out such violations. I mean, we have elections for council every 2 years. If we had the guidelines, then part of the voters' determination, they factor that in to incumbents running or to people who are challenging how well they might adhere to those guidelines, I think, is part of the process. So I just don't see that we need anything other than to fix what we need for covering the charter requirements for disciplinary action. It's also been pointed out to me by others that there's no defined threshold criteria, and so basically anything could trigger other violation, and procedure allow a council member to initiate punitive actions, retaliatory or political motives. That which invites mischief, having that to recognize the procedure. So I just don't, anyway, because of all that, I think I'm going to develop a substitute bill that basically just addresses the charter need for change. I don't think these less than removal are really needed. In fact, could have some unintended consequences that we wouldn't want.
Councilman Light.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple thoughts and questions as I kind of sift through my thoughts here. Brian, how long you been with the city? I forget.
8 years.
And in your tenure, we haven't had any issues that came to the level of removal, right? And just a few instances, not to give a number, but a few that have come to you with questions that were a procedure or process or inquisition or whatever. Fair?
I think that's a fair statement.
I certainly appreciate the work that went into crafting that document. I think it could potentially put us in even more peril in a lot of ways. And I'll give an example of what I mean by that. So if someone in this room, because this is who it would have to come from, somebody in this room would present to the clerk a complaint of some sort and then report it to council as process, it would then be public, correct?
Correct.
I'm all in on people being, what I'm going to use a word here, which I didn't see a whole lot in the document. I didn't Control F to find it, but I didn't see a whole lot in the document that talked about ethical behavior. To me, this body should be held accountable to an ethics standard. We've opened up some Pandora's box, and bear with me, indulge me as I go through this, based on a complaint that somebody may lodge in this for whatever reason, personal, professional, vendetta, whatever, valid. That's going to become public. Everyone in our city is going to know whatever that is, and how that process then plays out depending upon whatever rules we adopt. This almost invites that, and I'm worried of the damage that this could cause any in future bodies. So I'll leave it there. My additional thought would be two additional thoughts. One is, if for whatever reason it comes back to this body, well, they all come back to the body, but then the body would say, would approve of whatever number we settle on, and I agree, because most everything in what I've read refers to the 2/3 number. Most everything, not everything, but most everything. I would go that way, just because it's pretty standard throughout. As we come back and we investigate, launch an investigation, hire an outside source. I know the bill says no economic impact, but if this goes through to some level, or there is a complaint lodged, an investigation launched, blah, 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 it's going to have a cost. Do we have any idea what that could cost? If you play it out for additional days, adding the additional time, or requesting the outside attorney, requesting additional time, at whatever per hour, how many hours to investigate, how many hours to conduct a trial.
Very expensive. Tens of thousands of dollars. It's hard to put an accurate kind of assessment more than that, but I would be surprised if it's less.
Significant.
Yeah.
And then
That's under both. That's under both current and proposed.
I agree with that, but now you're taking a process that maybe not quite as spelled out or lined out, that allows input from our city attorney to advise any previous or any current situation that need to be litigated into I mean, this is a pretty lengthy process here.
And if I could, and City Administrator has a really great point. There is a potential, if we were in a situation where the City Council determined we need to hire outside counsel under our city code, that it could be a lot more expensive under our city code than under a defined process. Because essentially, under our city code and under Robert's rules, what it says is, yeah, there's authority to do discipline and afford due process. And so part of that task is figuring out, okay, what's an appropriate amount of due process? What are the exact provisions that we have to follow? We have to game plan this out. And that's what I tried to do when essentially analyzing the current city code. And what I came up with was, it's broken. And so there is a potential that under a more spelled out process, that the bill is cheaper because the process is spelled out. There's no research that has to go into, okay, what's the next step? Here's what we have to do. Okay, I have to look at all these cases to figure out what a court approved from a process standpoint, as opposed to, okay, here's what the city code A, B, C. So I think the city administrator makes a really good point that if we got into a situation where we had to get into a removal situation, right now under our city code, it's going to be really expensive. And it's going to be really expensive if we get into the same situation under this code as well. And so it does say no fiscal note, partly because of it's just impossible to figure out what any particular case may end up costing. But also, I don't know if there's a huge amount of difference what would be spent under our city code currently in this new code as well. It's an unknown, but the cost is going to be high either way.
Okay. Well, that actually alarms me even more. And I respect both of your thoughts and your inputs there. I understand it. I get it. But if you're saying cost of litigation is X, whatever X is, and we agree that it's going to be substantial in either implication, then what's the cost? Then the cost is the damage to this body and this institution. I want to be very, very careful in anything that I support that puts this body and this city in bad or worse light. Is there, and I'll finish with this, is there predicate to establishing, would this be acceptance in the charter, to have for example, a 3-person ethics committee appointed, and the processes reviewed, and it would take 2/3 of the vote committee to present to this body before it's just given out there. without any vetting, any determination of malicious intent or inappropriate intent. Me personally, I would, for the credibility and ethics, move in that direction for me.
Councilman Hazelton and Councilman Spencer.
Also, this process seems very heavy and very slow moving, and it does, as Councilman Leichel said, have the potential of great expense. If this is something for less than removal, now the removal process I understand, all due process must be exhausted, but even at that point, whenever you get a councilman that's past half of their term, by the time you get around to it, it's 2 months before re-election or they're done with their term completely. It's lost its effectiveness. In order for a tool like this to have any sort of effectiveness or usefulness or meaning, it needs to be executed within a decent amount of time to be effective. Otherwise, it's pointless. We've thrown tons of staff hours and our time and money into an issue that, well, the guy's not in office anymore. It worked itself out. So at that point, we need to be swift about this and have defined time parameters too. Something along the lines of not to exceed 90 days or something, but something that is swift and effective, not, oh, we can drag this out, for 18 months and it's no longer a deal. If that makes any sense to anybody.
So, yeah, I don't know if there's a question there.
The statement is that this is a very slow-moving process for less than removal, and it appears to lend itself to being extended out, and it's being lost as time goes along. So there's no real time constraint, no time boundary, and having a trial for a mere censure, for example, oh, hey, this guy didn't, for example, he's got a record of not paying his taxes to the city or something like that. Just an example. We shouldn't have to have a long process just to say, these are the facts, this is what happened, we all agree, we saw it, we saw the documentation. We all agree by vote. It's a bad idea for that councilman. That's your admonition, go on. Versus the 6-month, 10-month process.
Yeah. So, under this provision, there is, when the discipline is less than removal, there is a mechanism for the city council to move to immediate discipline upon receiving a request for discipline. And so, that could be as what's that?
The defense of the accused could be, well, I want a trial, and then they drag it out.
That's not how it works.
Okay, so
that's not how it works.
So then we're not at.
So if for example, there were a request for discipline, and the discipline said, I use a ridiculous example, Councilman X is chewing gum during meeting. Okay? And they attach to that, here's all the instances where he was chewing gum in meeting. City council takes a look at it, says, oh yeah, absolutely, chewing gum. Councilman X, do you have a response? Yeah, I chewed my gum, but I like it, so whatever. City council could then move to discipline immediately. So in those types of situations, there is an option for it. But if the city council says, okay, we need to find out more about this information, then you could call, into an investigation period. Yes, that is longer. I believe that it's, up to 60 days for the investigation to take place. And then once it receives the report, then the trial has to happen within at least 45 days. Yeah, that's a really long process. 3.5 months. So that's kind of the outside. that's contemplating this is 3.5 months. The insight's probably 2 weeks.
Okay, so it's not a process that can be dragged out into perpetuity.
No, if the way I try to design this, that if all the information is there, as long as the accused council member has the opportunity to respond to the accusations, then the city council can almost immediately move to discipline, as long as it's less than removal. The removal will take the full boat.
Mr. Crane, then Councilman Spencer.
Yeah, I just, if the council is hesitant on this process, I would recommend that we send it back to committee and do more work. But what we currently have is a section 2.2-5 that our attorney feels like is cumbersome and problematic. And one of the reasons why we got to this point where we're reviewing this 1977 code and suggesting changes is because we have had problems. So the idea that we've never had any problems, I think is inaccurate. So we're trying to come up with solutions and a process that addresses perceived problems. And maybe one of the reasons why there hasn't been a formal process with perceived problems is because of lack of faith in the process. So the idea of waiting until election year, you need to understand that we potentially have staff members complaining about issues that has happened throughout the years, not just now, but decades, about council behavior. And if they're asking for support or help or relief, the idea that they need to wait till the next election could also be problematic for this organization for not dealing with the perceived problem by staff members. So I want to make sure that we're very clear that the reason why we're here tonight is not because of nothing's ever happened and nothing's ever been a problem. We got a code on the books from 1977 that was probably put in place when there was perceived problems in 1977. If you all really want us to look and go back in the history of this organization and make a determination if we think that there's been problems in the past, we can do that. It's probably a waste of time. I have full faith that our city attorney has put a cleanup bill in front of you that he thinks is more workable under the current situation, and the idea to wait until elections when we have problems that could potentially get us into legal problems with behavior between council and staff or council and council, I think is a long-term bad strategy.
Councilman Spencer.
Yeah, and to not tippy-toe around this issue, I raised a complaint, an issue with a colleague, Councilman Mealy, about something that was inappropriately stated in the council chambers that was witnessed by 2 fellow council members. When I drafted that policy, Councilman Leichel, I really thought about creating what your suggestion, I believe, is an ethics committee. But I didn't want to make the process any more cumbersome. I didn't want to make government bigger. So I thought the closest committee that would address these issues was the administration committee. And in all fairness, I felt like there was not a process for me to go through, other than when I did have a conversation with our city attorney. And his suggestion was that we don't have a mechanism to do these kinds of discussions in closed session. That is correct. So I had to do it openly. And that was the driving force of some of these potential policy changes. So, I think it's something that we ought to look at hard. Yes, it is policing ourselves, because that's what the charter states, that's our responsibility to do so. I still want to make sure that there is a mechanism, and our city attorney has addressed that tonight, that we're not leaving staff neglected with an opportunity to address concerns with interactions of council or vice versa. So again, it's meaning that spirit of openness and transparency, And it's something I think that the citizens expect us to do. I think they probably already expect there's a policy in place to address some of these issues, and there's not. So, you know, I'm not going to be here next term, so it's something that you and future council members will have to address. But thank you.
Councilman Schwartz, were you looking to make a comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'm actually pretty shocked that this has been this long of a discussion. I actually commend the attorney for our city to try to codify something that makes sense. We all talk about all the time law and how it's tough to read and it's messy, and the fact that Attorney Molman is trying to lay out a process, I think, is commendable. Not that it's going to be used, or not that it's been used in the past, but at some point there's going to be a reason to use it. In Section 2, subsection 51 specifically says that you have to have written evidence documents or witness statements which support allegations. And so to me, that takes the entire notion of frivolous accusations off the table. And so I think what's been lost in the quote handbook and this is that we're all adults here. We've all have life experiences. We know how to treat people. We know how to act. We don't need someone putting in writing how we're supposed to treat each other. It's common sense. And so to have this put in and to give us a process moving forward, I think is the wise thing to do. Furthermore, when you come to talking about cost, I mean, no one ever talks about cost when it comes to a trial, whether it's criminal or anything else. If somebody's breaking the law, I don't care what the cost is. And if we stand there in front of the mayor like we do in April and raise our hand and swear to uphold the Constitution and the charter of the city, if we break that law, I don't care what it costs to put that person on notice, on trial, or whatever you want to call it. So I think I commend Council Molman for laying this out, for giving future councils a path to do this in case something comes up, and I look forward to voting for it. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Lester, then Councilman Muley.
So we haven't had guidelines in the past. I would just say that I think having the guidelines and that we all, having them agree that we're going to abide by them does make a difference. And I really think problems maybe we've had in the past, and some of it maybe because we haven't had guidelines. It's been clear, and now we have them. So I'm still do not believe we really need something other than clarifying and having appropriate process for the charter.
Councilman Muley, and then Councilman Michael.
Kind of to echo what Councilman Michael said, one of my concerns with the code is in relation to the thresholds. I mean, you know, like given a hypothetical of a council member, you know, making something up and then talking to two friends on council and saying, would you agree with this? You know, hypothetically, right? And that gets put into a complaint. And that gets in the public domain, but in this hypothetical, it's false, right? I'm just not sure how that really, I guess my question would be is what is the repercussion then? I mean, is there some sort of bigger, you know, lawful repercussion than like a law enforcement response, or how would that play out?
Put me on the spot a little bit here. Elected officials generally enjoy what is known as absolute immunity. And generally they enjoy immunity from civil action for conduct and statement that happened during the legislative process. And so, you know, a lot of times things like defamation cases aren't effective in those types of situations. I certainly have a hard time imagining what a criminal response would be like, but if a law was broken, then, you know, that's up to the police, highway patrol, FBI to figure out and deal with. But that's hard to imagine what that would be. One thing that I did think about that didn't come in this draft, but was certainly contemplated, was a provision that said essentially abuse of this process.
What, I'm sorry?
Abuse of this process could be grounds for discipline in and of itself. That could be a good idea to address kind of that concern. Sure. But the situations are kind of a little too various and different to give a real good answer of what any particular outcome might be. It just kind of depends what the situation is, what a response could be. But like I said, a provision that said abuse of the process is ground for discipline. I think that may be something for the city council to consider, you know, if that is a concern.
Okay. Councilman Michael?
Thank you, Mayor.
And Councilman Hazelton.
Excuse me. See it in there, but it may have been, I may have missed it, but is there a statutes of limitation provision relative to somebody's complaint of when they observed or when they?
Well, it's council terms are fairly short. They're 2-year terms and you have a max of 8, so your statute of limitations is 8 years. It's a long statute of limitations given everything else in the law, but that's a practical statute of limitations.
So for whatever reason, for example, if I mean, your policy is detailed. I'm not saying it isn't. It is. It covers a lot, but every instance isn't as unlike its other. Everyone's different. Every situation, every complaint or misdeed is different. So if somebody witnessed something 3 or 4 months ago, 5 months ago, 8 months ago, 10 months ago, however long, 4 years ago, if you wanted to elongate it using your, what if, to bring up Councilman Swartz's point, that if someone's nearing the end of their term and they either not elect to run or they're voted out, but they hadn't served 8 terms, and we all know they can come back after they sit out a 2-year term. If there wasn't time, and I've just got a lot of questions relative to time, is how far do you go back One, can literally go back 8 years? Holy cow, okay? So does that have any, would the penalty, if there was a penalty, and if it went to a trial and all of that, what would happen if that person didn't run again, but yet ran 2 years from then, if they would not have, even if they were removed, could they run again after 2 years? So just a lot of questions relative to time and statute limitations and where it would be applicable and when.
Right. So there is no statute of limitations contained with this. So if there were a charter violation, 5 years ago, someone wanted to bring it up, yeah, this would allow it. And the discipline ultimately is up to the city council.
And those complaints would immediately go public when they reported the county clerk or city clerk.
Yeah.
From Hazelton.
Mr. Mayor, it's been so long, I forgot what I was going to say.
Can I help you there?
I call the question.
There is no question to call.
It's been an hour on this subject and
We'll introduce Councilman Lester.
Good God.
So in some other cities I've seen, part of the process, as my understanding is before it got into the formal public process, there was an evaluation of sufficiency of the complaint. And I'm wondering whether that if we do this, whether that's an appropriate thing and whether it's something like the independent ethics that looks at that in terms of just sufficiency of a complaint, or whether that's worthwhile.
I think that's an option. So just to give you an insight in my process, and that's all this is. What I'm saying right now is just an insight in my process. I took a look at Councilman Spencer's policy he had drafted up and utilized essentially the administration committee in that role. And one of the reasons that I rejected that was I thought it made the administration committee too outsized in power. That made that the most powerful committee in the city council, in the entire city, other than the city council. I didn't think that was appropriate because that's not really what they're there to do. And the other thing is that it added just a ton of time. And so if you had that type of process that was mandatory to go through, yes, you would get into the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months type process, which when you have a process that takes that long, reduces its effectiveness. So is that something that is worthy of consideration? Absolutely. Those are the reasons I didn't put it in the draft, but there's no reason it can't be in any particular bill that, that the city council would want to address. It's just kind of cost-benefit analysis. Additional time versus kind of some extra protections. But I can't say, I don't think I can come up with a theory or mechanism where the work of a independent ethics inquiry board would remain private. That in and of itself would be an open process.
It should be.
So once there is a request for discipline, the bell is rung. And I really don't know how to get to any other mechanism where you can kind of deal with these things, before that bell is rung. Kind of really the only option is hire a standing outside counsel to look at these things. Because I can't look at them. My ethical obligations to the city council does not allow me to enter into the policing action of the city council. I can't do it. But could you hire city outside counsel to sit around and do absolutely nothing except take up ethical inquiries as needed? Yeah, you could. That could maybe do that, but, you know, you'd have to keep someone on retainer in order to do that. Probably not for a whole lot. Probably wouldn't cost anything just to keep it there, but you'd have to make a conscious effort to always have someone.
Councilman Mealy, do you have a comment?
Yeah, just one. I think that this type of ordinance will put us in a position for just almost like machine gun type allegations. You know, if Councilman A accuses Councilman B of something, then Councilman B is likely to go and accuse the Councilman A of something. And I mean, it could really get like the Wild Wild West really, really fast. You know, you look at what's going on now, and then you look at the future too, and you try to think what will work well for the city and for other councils. And I would be happy to look at substitute language, because I don't know. Well, I don't know if our staff has the capacity to get 10 allegations a week, you know, or whatever may end up be coming out of this, and how you would process those and how that would all function. There's got to be almost a mechanism in this thing that checks validity from the beginning. And I don't know what that is. I understand, Mr. Mulming, your point about, you know, what other council members had suggested as a ethics type body. But without checking the validity, I think you really get into something you may want to avoid.
All right, we're going around in circles here. I do have a question for the chairman of the admin committee. Did this not come out of your committee 5-0?
Yes.
I would just encourage council, we have committees for a purpose. It was my belief, and I was online, I was not in the room, but there was not much discussion on this bill. Sounds to me like whatever mechanism we need to get this bill back to admin to address some of these questions, because unless there's new information, I'm going to ask if council is comfortable moving forward. Councilman Leichel.
All due respect to you, Mr. Mayor, and committee members on the admin committee, I'm not on that committee. I work at 6:45 in the morning, and I have to take vacation to get to that meeting if I were to attend, and any other meetings. I believe that the subject at hand deserves the opportunity for us to communicate in a completely openness to share with our our fellow council members. And I'm going to respect everyone's time. But frankly, we should all get the answers to our question in an open setting, in an open forum, that didn't have an opportunity to present those questions or those thoughts at the infancy stage of this document. And I want to respect your all's time. I know we got places to go. We want to be home. We'd rather be home. But I'm entitled to ask my questions. I certainly respect when you ask yours. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schwartz.
I don't really know what that was, but I don't know who's asking somebody to not ask questions. You know, this is a pretty basic codification of what is already in law. And if anybody is on administration remembers, a citizen came and called this a kangaroo court, who now has filed to run for council. And so it seems like a couple of our council folks has taken up that banner for this person running for council to call it a kangaroo court. And it's just, I don't want to say it's shocking, but it's so disingenuous that I cannot believe we're still at this point. All we are doing is codifying into law what the process is. And if people on this council don't think that us and future council folks are adult enough not to do well, I'm blaming this councilman for this, I'm blaming this councilwoman for that. I mean, we need to grow up. I mean, this is just codification of law. That's all it is. That's all we are doing. But unfortunately, we've divulged into a discussion about, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Well, I remember the Duke lacrosse players. I remember people like that have been falsely accused of things, and it comes out eventually. But I mean, this is starting to get a little bit out of hand here.
Councilman Alders.
First, I'll apologize for the probably my disposition, I might clarify it as, but we've had this thing for a few months before the administration committee that we've passed and pushed it along back further so we could get comment. We had plenty of time for comment on a bunch of this stuff. So that's where my frustration lies, that we're spending more time on something as simple as just codifying a set of procedures, and now we're playing the what if game, what if this, what if that, what if that, where all it just says is we can begin a process, we have a process to start. That is my frustration, just sitting here listening for an hour or so on this stuff, is that this has all been here since probably August or whenever we decided to take this up and put it out there for everybody's comments and come back with things. And that's my frustration. So, and I've been up since 3:30 in the morning. That's when I get up to go to work. So, I apologize to all for my disposition on this matter, but I found something so simple has turned into something I just cannot believe as grown-ups that we're sitting here talking about, when the rule number one in life is try to be a good person. That is it. That's all the good Lord asks us to do, is try to be a good person every day. And yeah, we're not perfect, but by and large, this group of here, I think we hit the mark pretty close most of the time. So that's my 2 cents. I thank you all, and my apologies to you all.
Comments. All right, we'll move to bills pending. 12A has already been taken up above. Item 12B, Bill 2024-058.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a real estate and development agreement with PG & Company LC for 405 and 407 East Capitol Avenue, 109 and 111 Adams Street.
Mr. Smith, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the clerk had read, this is authorizing an execution of a real estate and development agreement for the sale of property, and the development agreement that governs the development of the property with PG & Company LC. And essentially, the agreement includes 4 properties, which you see on the screen right now, really grouped into 2 packages, one of those being 405 and 407 East Capitol Avenue, the other 2 being 109 and 111 Adams Street. So the agreement would authorize the sale of the property. It also includes the provision from the proposal that was submitted, and the buyer would be committing then to constructing 2 buildings, one on each of those 2 groups of property, essentially a multifamily structure that would essentially be developed first on 405 and 407 per conditions within that agreement, would need to be constructed within 2 years. The other group of properties, 109 and 111, does have a condition that those properties should be improved within 6 years. And if that is not the case, the city does then have a method which to reacquire that property. So that way it compels basically what was included in that proposal to make sure this was built there is what the city was anticipating. The proceeds of the sale of that property would total $42,000. And there was a question, I think, at the previous meeting of a rendering. I did speak with the potential buyer, and he had went ahead and submitted that. If you can advance the PDF one page. Do you have the clicker, actually? Oh, back up here. Oh, there it is. I'll grab that. So this is kind of a revised rendering, I think, from the original proposal. There was kind of two kind of roundabouts, if you will, on the frontage, so it's been scaled back a little bit, I think, to kind of be a little more consistent and a little more appropriate for the historical context of this neighborhood. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about this agreement.
All right, and Builder's also here. I don't know if you have any comments you'd like to make.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Gregory is here, and he'd be available for questions if council had any questions.
Okay. Any questions from council? All right. We have 2024-058 in front of you for a roll call vote.
Joe? Aye. Lester?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Neely? Aye. Schwartz?
Aye.
Spencer?
Aye.
Spicer?
Aye.
Young?
Aye.
Fowlers?
Aye.
Hazelton?
Aye.
Bill passes.
Congratulations. Thanks for your investment in our community. Look forward to it. It's going to be a fun project. All right, informal calendar 2024-056.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a real estate and development agreement with GKS Management LLC for 401, 409, 417, 410 to 416 East Capitol Avenue, 113 Adams, 104 to 108 Jackson, and 415 Commercial Way.
Councilman, what's your preference on this bill?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to remove this off the informal calendar so we can vote on that tonight.
All right. You've got 2024-056 in front of you. Any comments, questions? Again, the developer's here, so appreciate you riding it out with us. All right, we'll do a roll call vote.
Lester?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Neely? Aye. Schwartz?
Aye.
Spencer?
Aye.
Spicer?
Aye.
Young?
Aye.
Fowlers?
Aye.
Hazelton?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Bill passes.
All right, that takes us to item 14, resolution 2024-32.
A resolution authorizing the City of Jefferson to apply for the Missouri Department of Natural Resources State Revolving Loan Program for funds under the Missouri Clean Water Laws.
Mr. Bain.
Yes, thank you. This, the city has received state funds through the State Revolving Loan Fund, and so there's a process by which those funds have to be requested and ultimately an authorized agent to request those. And so Matt Marash, the previous public works director, had been that authorized representative. And so this is changing that to be me in the interim position. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I thought he should be here tonight.
Well, I thought he should be too.
Actually hand the baton.
Yeah.
He felt like that wasn't a good idea. Councilman Spencer, would you like to get this
Yes, I'd like to
table for us?
place this on the table to be voted on.
Second.
All right, you've got resolution 2024-32 in front of you. We'll take any questions or comments. All right, do a roll call vote.
Michael?
Aye.
Neely?
Abstain.
Schwartz?
Aye.
Spencer?
Aye.
Spicer?
Aye.
Young?
Aye.
Fowlers?
Aye.
Hazelton?
Aye.
Job?
Aye.
Lester?
Aye.
Michael? Very good. Resolution's adopted.
All right, takes us to resolution 2024-33.
A resolution of the City of Jefferson, Missouri adopting the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice.
Mr. Smith, you're back.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a resolution that will adopt the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. This is a required document since we are an entitlement community that receives community development block grant funds. The analysis is required to be done every 5 years. We did hire a consultant this time around with RKG Associates. They did put together the report. We did have a public meeting at a city council meeting in these chambers on November 4th, at which point there was a 30-day public comment period. We didn't receive any further comments on the draft. Be happy to answer any questions, but right now we're seeking essentially approval of that resolution to be able to forward that plan along.
Councilman Spencer.
I'd like to move this place on the table so we can vote on it tonight, please.
Second. Thank you, Councilman Hazelton. You had 2024-33, Resolution 2024-33. Any comments or questions? Do a roll call vote on that.
Mealy,
Aye.
Schwartz,
Aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Spicer.
Aye.
Young.
Aye.
Allers.
Aye.
Hazelton.
Aye.
Job.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Resolution is adopted.
All right, takes us to Resolution 2024-34.
A resolution approving the adoption of the City of Jefferson's official logo and style guide.
Thank you. Yep. So this resolution would adopt the official city logo and style guide. You can see the full branding kit there in your packet. Presentation I had earlier. So.
Councilman Allers.
I'd like to move this on to the, for the full vote of the city council.
All right, you've got Resolution 2024-34 in front of you. Any questions, comments? Nice job, Ms. Bryan. Thank you. All right, do a roll call vote.
Schwartz,
I want to vote no because she's quitting, but I'll vote aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Spicer.
Aye.
Young.
Aye.
Allers.
Aye.
Hazelton.
Aye.
Job.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Mealy.
Aye.
Resolution is adopted.
Takes us to item 15, approval of the closed session minutes. So moved.
Second.
All right, we will also need a roll call on that.
Spencer.
Aye.
Spicer.
Aye.
Young.
Aye.
Allers.
Aye.
Hazelton.
Aye.
Job. Lester. Michael.
Aye.
Mealy.
Aye.
Schwartz.
Aye.
Right, new business. Councilman Spencer, did you have any business?
No, it'll be addressed in the closed session. We certainly can.
Councilman.
Next meeting.
Okay.
You want to mention it?
On what?
Oh, 21st, or 21st?
Yeah, that we would cancel that meeting, council meeting. Just have that on your horizon for next meeting. Cancel.
It's already gotten bumped because of Martin Luther King's birthday.
So we're going to put that on the agenda for the first meeting in January, if the council's okay with canceling that.
They'll be on a cruise.
All right, no unfinished business I'm aware of. It takes us down to the last. I'm going to ask the clerk to read the statement just to brighten your evening. We do have some closed session items, so Councilwoman Young, make her motion after the clerk reads the statement.
The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn the public session and pursuant to section 610-021 of the Revised Statutes for Missouri during the closed session to discuss the following: attorney-client privilege, subsection 1, hiring, firing, disciplining, or promoting employees, subsection 3, individually identifiable personnel records, subsection 13, and negotiated contracts and sealed proposals, subsection 12.
Mr. Mayor, I move that this meeting be adjourned.